Chapter 2264. Swords rained down. Yi Zichen had to thank the guard leader. If it wasn't for the guard leader's sudden attack stopping Yi Zichen from casting, Yi Zichen really wouldn't have had the time to recover his cosmic energy. Now, Yi Zichen had recovered at least 20% of his energy, so he could cast Sweeping Sword even faster. As for where the archers were, he couldn't even be bothered to look. Corpses. Who would care about them? At that moment, a golden longsword was about to land on the head of a young native. The guard leader reached out and shouted when he saw that. No! Then, he looked towards Yi Zichen with bloodshot eyes. Stop! You can't watch anymore? Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. It seems like he's your son? Ugh! The golden sword pierced through the young man's head. Ah! The guard leader screamed miserably. He only had 2 sons, and they both died in front of him. Is it very painful? Yi Zichen smiled without any hint of pity in his eyes. You will feel pain after losing your family. Have you thought about what would happen to our family if they lost us? That's how war is. The guard shouted. Yes, you're right. Yi Zichen nodded. That's how war is. There's no right or wrong. The winner takes all. Now, I'm the winner. You lost. Feel the pain. Pain. The guard leader laughed. What's there to feel pain about? My sons died for our home. I'm proud of them. As for you, despicable invaders, you will all die here. No one will be able to leave alive. Is that so? Yi Zichen tilted his head. Where did you get your confidence from? Is it because of your formation masters? Do you think that I can't break through their defensive barrier? Or do you think that my subordinates can't deal with those trash who set up formations? Sire, we've dealt with all 300 formation masters. At that moment, Han Qing led everyone in front of Yi Zichen. They all puffed up their chests and looked up. As for the formation masters outside the village, they had already disappeared. Then, the formation at the west gate of the village shattered. With the flame rat leading the charge, several thousand people, including Tian Hai and company, charged out. Look at your great plan. Mu Yi roared angrily with bloodshot eyes. They ran. The thousands of people in the village all ran away. The 300 formation masters were all dead, and the guards and archers at the west gate were all dead. Most importantly, he hadn't gotten White back yet. It was worth noting that the purge plan was nothing compared to Bai. The target, White, was far more powerful than the rest of the villagers. Didn't you already send people to kill them? Why are you so angry? The young man shrugged. If it weren't for you, I would have gotten Bai back a long time ago. I wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble. Let's not talk about the casualties. You. Suddenly, Mu Yi grabbed the young man's neck. It's all your fault. I'm here. Just as Mu Yi was about to vent his anger, the young man appeared a few meters away and waved his hand with a smile. You're really irritable. It's just a few thousand people running away. Mu Yi's eyes instantly darkened. He did not expect the young man to have such a trick up his sleeve. After all, he did feel that he had grabbed the young man just now. So, how did the young man get to a position that was a few meters away? Bai has escaped as well. It seemed that this young man was not as simple as he thought. Mu Yi narrowed his eyes and tried to suppress the anger in him. I'll catch her if she runs away. The young man shrugged again. You? I said that there won't be any problems. That means there won't be any problems. Just as Mu Yi was about to explode, the young man smiled and said, Everything is still under my control. Everything just now was just a test for that guy. I just wanted to see how strong his martial soul is. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man's eyes were filled with excitement. Top-notch martial soul. He had never expected Future's martial soul to be a top-notch martial soul. The power of Future's martial soul had far exceeded the scope of the young man's understanding. If Future could catch him, the young man's eyes were filled with excitement. His gaze was so intense that Mu Yi could not look him in the eye. What do you mean? Mu Yi was a simple-minded person. He did not understand what the young man was saying. All he knew was that the west gate had been breached, his men had suffered heavy losses, and Master Hua's target had not been achieved. It could be said that he had failed his mission, and it was all because of the young man in front of him. Everything is under my control. Do you think you can catch her? Of course, the young man nodded. Of course I can capture you for him, but I have a small request. Speak. You can have Bai and Qing Hui's daughters. Give me the guy who condensed the golden sword. The young man pointed at Yi Zichen. Impossible. Bai Sei, Qing Yu, and Yi Zichen were all targets that Master Huo wanted. How could Mu Yi hand Yi Zichen over to him? You're just too stubborn. The young man shook his head. Master Huo wants you to catch Bai Sei. You should have completed your mission by bringing Bai Sei and Qing Hui's daughter back. As for the guy who condensed the golden sword, so what? Impossible. Mu Yi shook his head. Since that's the case, then I'm sorry. Go and catch him yourself. The young man shrugged. You're seeking death. Mu Yi's big hand slapped out fiercely, and the young man who had been slapped appeared a few meters away. You can't do anything to me. Give up. Actually, I didn't go too far. I didn't ask for any reward for setting up such a huge trap for you. I just want him. How about this? I'll take him for 7 days. After that, I'll give him back to you. Really? Mu Yi frowned. Really? The young man nodded. Just 7 days. Mu Yi naturally didn't want that. He was just trying to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. He really couldn't do anything to this young man. Mu Yi let out a deep sigh and nodded. Sure. Since he couldn't deal with the young man right now, he could only continue using him. He didn't know the young man's abilities yet. Once he did, he would have a good life ahead of him. Since that's the case, then thank you, said the young man. Don't say that. Tell me how you're going to catch him. Mu Yi's expression darkened. There was no formation outside. If those guys wanted to run, who could catch them? What's more, those invaders all had the ability to leave this world. This was also what Lord Huo was most wary of and worried about. That was why Master Huo wanted to purge them. He didn't want to leave anyone alive. He didn't want to give them a chance to leave. You want to know? The young man grinned. Never mind, I'll tell you. That way, you won't have to worry so much. Actually, there's still a formation outside. They can't leave. Chapter 2265. The young man, sitting not far away from the west side of the village. His words were filled with confidence and strategy. Mu Yi was stunned for a moment, then looked into the distance in an attempt to find the second seal the young man spoke of. Why don't I see it? If you can see it, do you think that guy won't be able to find it? The young man's words were already filled with mockery towards Mu Yi. Mu Yi could feel it, but he couldn't do anything to the young man. All he could do was endure. At the very least, he wouldn't let the young man have his way with words before the purge ends. Yi Zichen clenched his fists. Mu Yi let out a sigh, as if he was releasing some of the anger in his heart. Can you be sure that they can't get out? They definitely can't. The young man squinted his eyes, which shone brightly as he stared at Yi Zichen, who stood outside the village with a golden sword in his hand. A top-grade martial soul. Such a powerful martial soul technique could last for so long. It truly has too much research value. If I can dissect his martial soul, then my research results will definitely increase. No, it's a huge improvement, a qualitative leap. We survived, we survived. The survivors rushed out of the village like a tide, and all of them looked as if they had just survived a disaster, and they shouted with their faces raised. They needed to vent their emotions. Not long ago, they were still in despair as they watched their compatriots get slaughtered by the natives. They were on the verge of breaking down countless times. They brandished their weapons in desperation. Finally, they got out. They had to be persistent, and it paid off. Future God, Meng Luo's face was also covered in blood. Yi Zichen ran over and looked at her for a while. You're not hurt, right? I'm fine. Everyone is taking good care of me. Meng Luo smiled and wiped the blood off her face. A faint smile appeared on Meng Luo's face as she wiped the blood from her face. It's just that a lot of people died. Meng Luo's emotions sank. Yi Zichen patted her head when he saw her like that. He understood Meng Luo's feelings very well. She, who had been protected by her family since she was young, had no idea how cruel the outside world was. She had personally witnessed the deaths of so many people. It was understandable for her to be depressed. In truth, Meng Luo's current behavior wasn't too bad. At the very least, she still had some semblance of rationality and was standing in front of Yi Zichen. If it was someone with a weak mental endurance, they might have already collapsed. For example, the woman not far away. She had clearly survived the calamity, but she seemed to have collapsed as she sat on the ground and wailed. She was in a state of madness. By the way, where are Hua Jianro and Bai Sei? Why isn't the flame rat with you? Yi Zichen looked around. Meng Luo pointed behind them with a smile. Right here. Without waiting for Meng Luo to finish, Yi Zichen and Meng Luo both saw several tens of natives kill the Star Cloud Union people who were protecting Hua Jianro and Bai Sei and take them away. The flame rat chased after them, its eyes filled with anxiety. Sister Ro, Sister Baiyu. Meng Luo was shocked. Yi Zichen pushed her into Han Qing's arms, then chucked the sword in his hand towards the natives. The golden long sword pierced through the air and instantly pierced through his chest. Not long later, Yi Zichen landed in the middle of the natives and took out his weapon from his backpack. Die. Boom! A blinding golden light. The golden light, with Yi Zichen at the center, slaughtered the several tens of natives around him. Ding! Congratulations! You leveled up to level 5 of the domain realm. Intruders! Damned intruders! Several natives' guards grabbed their weapons in the distance and seemed to have gone mad. Strands of flames burned on his body, turning him into a man of flames in less than half a breath's time. Yi Zichen saw his transformation. It was a very familiar feeling, causing Yi Zichen to immediately think of the Flame Commander. They really are his people. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. He might not have been certain before, but now he was completely certain that the natives here were all the Flame Commander's people. Since they are his people, there really wasn't any need for him to hold back. Sword shakes the universe. Countless rays of golden sword chi pierced through the incoming guards, causing them to fall to the ground. Great deity! The flame rat called out in joy. Yi Zichen picked up Hua Jianro and Bai Sei and walked in front of the flame rat. The flame rat couldn't help but lower his head when he felt Yi Zichen's gaze. Great deity, sorry to disappoint you. I wasn't able to protect Big Sister Ro and Big Sister Bai well. You did very well. You've grown up. Yi Zichen smiled towards the flame rat. Yi Zichen could see the wounds on the flame rat's body. Many of the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen. If it was anyone else, they might not have been able to hold on. However, the flame rat continued to stand there. Simon, let's go back. Yi Zichen quickly left through the west gate. Tianhai and the others were waiting outside. Why are you all staying here? Hurry up and leave this place. Get out of the signal-blocked area and log off. Yi Zichen shouted. As I thought, the network here is blocked. Everyone was shocked. In the future, I, Tianhai, owe you a favor. Tianhai, who held his sword in his left hand, said solemnly. Only then did Yi Zichen notice that Tianhai's right arm was already gone. It seems like the battle situation in the village was much more serious than he had imagined. Yi Zichen looked towards the others. Everyone was more or less injured, while those below the leader were in even more serious injuries. In the future, the Ling Corporation owes you a favor. Jingling walked up and held her arm. The Bee Valley as well, and the Blue Shield family. I can't represent the Steelcase family. Steelcase smiled wryly, then revealed a solemn expression. But I can represent myself. Future great god, I, Steelkike, swear here that as long as you need me in the future, I will not shirk my duty. Do not underestimate these promises. After all, these people were the top guilds in the second universe, and they were still people of status in the first universe. Their promises could be said to be greater than an army. Even 100 million universe credits couldn't compare to their promises at all. All right, I'll remember it. Yi Zichen smiled towards the crowd, then shrugged. Hurry up and leave. I've already dealt with the guards outside. Let's hurry up and leave. All right. The leaders nodded and prepared to leave. Not long after they left, they saw a large number of subordinates sitting on the ground in front of them. What are you guys doing? Tianhai frowned and scolded them angrily, perhaps because they were from the God realm. They already survived, yet they were still in such a state. Isn't that embarrassing? Sovereign, we can't get out. A middle-aged man suddenly walked up and shook his head towards Tianhai. Suddenly, a middle-aged man walked over from afar and shook his head at Sky Sea. We're trapped again. Chapter 2266. Again, I'm trapped. This was definitely a bolt out of the blue for everyone who had just survived. Hui Fengren charged forward and grabbed the middle-aged man's clothes. What did you say? His eyes were completely bloodshot. I clearly made it out of the village alive, but now someone from the god realm said, "Let go." The middle-aged man looked at Hui Fengren coldly, with a pair of eyes that made people feel like they had fallen into an abyss. From his gray eyes, one could tell that he was someone who had experienced countless deaths and bloodshed and climbed out of the abyss countless times. Hui Fengren subconsciously let go. His mind was completely blank just now, and he didn't have the courage to grab the middle-aged man's clothes again. "Agio, be more friendly," Tianhai muttered. Tianhai muttered. The middle-aged man heard this and walked behind him. "What did you mean by being trapped again?" "Sovereign, this subordinate already went to check. There is still a seal around the village." This subordinate tried to break it, but to no avail, the middle-aged man replied. "Damn it," Tianhai sighed. Terrible news came one after another. During this period of time, he truly felt rather tired, as if he had returned to several tens of thousands of years ago. "There's another seal?" Jingling also frowned. Due to their shock, everyone ignored what the middle-aged man called Tianhai. "Sovereign." The universe cared a lot about titles. Between superiors and subordinates, they were called by strength. If it was below the universe level, they would be called Lord. Above the universe level, they would be called General, Commander, Marquis, Duke. Sovereign meant that this person was a sovereign-level expert. The fact that Agio called Tianhai sovereign proved that Tianhai was a true sovereign of the universe. "There was no seal when I came." Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. Seeing that it was Yi Zichen who spoke, Agio's expression turned slightly friendlier. He knew that Yi Zichen came to save them. It was all thanks to Yi Zichen that they were able to make it out of the village. "I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, you can go out and take a look. You will be able to touch it within a few hundred meters." "Being prepared is understandable," said Tianhai. "What do we do now?" Steelcase frowned. "It doesn't matter if they are prepared or not. We still have to deal with it." The others looked around when they heard him, seeing the light of hope in the midst of despair, only to find out that the light of hope was actually an illusion. This huge fluctuation of emotions and the huge psychological gap before and after was very difficult for people to accept. Forget about the other members. Among their leaders, 3 of them were already on the verge of collapse. Blue Shield Clan 0713, Return Windblade, and Gulu. Ever since he came into contact with Agio, Returning Windblade had been standing in the same place, his eyes looking ahead without any color. 0713 of the Blue Shield Clan covered his head. His eyes were already a little unfocused. Gulu, as a girl, she did not have a heart of stone like Jingling. In fact, she had been very afraid from the beginning, but she didn't want her emotions to affect others. She had been forcing herself to stay strong. After leaving the village, his tense nerves relaxed. The fear in her heart surged up like a tide, but she still endured it. No matter what, at least they were alive now, and fear was short-lived. At most, it was a lingering fear after surviving a disaster. Until Agio said that they couldn't get out again. She couldn't hold on anymore. She continued to stand on the ground, but both her expression and her eyes were already covered in fear. Her entire body radiated a cold aura as she trembled uncontrollably. "It's been hard on this girl," Tianhai sighed silently. Tianhai silently let out a long sigh. He could very well understand Gu Lu's current state and mood. "But you..." Tianhai looked at Jingling again. From the beginning till the end, whether it was when they were about to be eliminated, or when their compatriots died, or when they were unable to break through the West Gate, or when they saw Yi Zichen coming to help, or when they left the village, and now they were trapped again. She had always remained rational and logical. It was as if none of this could shake her heart. Just how strong of a heart did she have to be able to do this? One had to know that even Tianhai had been shaken for an instant. "What about me?" Jingling glanced at Tianhai and smiled. "I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. To get to where I am now, I've suffered a lot worse than what I'm going through now, if not 1,000 times." "No wonder," Tianhai nodded. "There were too many descendants of families in the universe. It was truly rare for someone to reach the universe step by step with their own strength. Not to mention someone like Jingling. The Ling Corporation had quite a high status in the universe. The fact that she was able to manage Universe 2 meant that she had a pretty good position in the corporation. It was hard to imagine just what kind of pain she had suffered to get to where she was now. And what kind of pain did she suffer to be able to say something like that so casually? In short, this girl wasn't simple. We can't count on Windblade and the others now. I'm afraid we can't count on half of our subordinates either. I'm sorry, but I don't have any ideas either. I wonder what you guys think. There were around 2,000 people who came out of the village alive. At that moment, half of them were in a mental breakdown, while the other half still maintained their rationality and did not fall into the abyss of despair. However, it was as Jingling said, she didn't have any ideas, and the others were the same. What if I say I don't have any ideas either? Tianhai smiled bitterly and shook his head. Actually, there are only two choices in front of us. Break the seal outside and we can get out alive. Or we can kill all the natives here and wait for reinforcements from the outside. Why these two? Jingling frowned. Do you have a third option? Of course, death. Jingling's calmness was terrifying even when she said death. I don't want to die. I still have 84 wives waiting for me outside, and children waiting to call me father. Tianhai grinned. 89 wives, supremacy? Jiu reminded. You took in another 5 concubines recently. Is that so? I've forgotten about it. Haha. Too many wives? I can't remember. Tianhai grinned. Heh. Jingling pouted. Steelcase was stunned as he listened. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at Tianhai. Then, he gave him a thumbs up. Brother Tianhai, you're really something. Chapter 2267. Huh. Tianhai laughed heartily to himself. I was just joking with you guys. How about it? Do you feel much more relaxed now? Jingling was still as disdainful as ever. She even looked at Tianhai as if he were an idiot. Jingling felt uncomfortable all over. The corners of Steelcake's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. As for Yi Zichen, he didn't care about Tianhai's joke at all. He looked at his compatriots from the first universe, saw the despair in their eyes, then at Han Qing and Chicano. I screwed up again. Even now, he still couldn't maintain absolute rationality. If time returned to a few hours ago, the best decision would have been to log off, contact the Virtual World Corporation, and let them deal with this problem. He always wanted to save the world, but in the end, he always ended up trapped. This time, he'd even dragged Han Qing and the others into this mess. Since the enemy dared to carry out a purge, they had people in the Virtual World Corporation. This time, they definitely made thorough preparations. They'd been too lax. On the way here, he hadn't even noticed that there were formation masters hiding nearby. No matter what, he couldn't die here. There were too many people on Earth waiting for him to return. Yi Zichen gripped the golden sword tightly, then wordlessly walked forward. Heaven plundering strike. Along with a loud rumble, the space outside the village's western gate was torn open. Within the crack, a faint trace of gold could be seen. Slowly, a golden sword hilt peeked out of the crack. Just the hilt alone was over a meter long. Just by looking at the hilt, one could roughly imagine just how enormous the sword was. When the golden hilt appeared, the earth trembled. The earth quaked. The people standing outside the village couldn't even stand stably. Just as they were about to steady themselves, the crack in the sky released a surging pressure. The intense pressure caused the surrounding people to subconsciously lower their eyes. They didn't dare look directly at the golden sword. Gulp. Xi and Zhengnan, who stood off in the distance, couldn't help but gulp. He, too, was suppressed by the golden sword's pressure. He didn't dare look up. However, his curiosity made him want to sneak a peek in front of him. Master, did the future lord do this? Ever since he came into contact with Yi Zichen, Xi and Zhengnan felt like his view of the world was about to collapse. A level 2 domain instantly killed hundreds of level 5 domain experts. Also, with the huge golden sword that he released this time, he felt that even if stellar level beings came, they would all die. No wonder that lady asked me to follow her brother. Han Qing's heart was also filled with terror. Judging from Yi Zichen's recent performance, he might be even more terrifying than by phone. Is this the will of God? Thank you, God. Chicano and Winnie both prayed in their hearts. They had come to Yi Zichen's side in accordance with the will of God, and from the looks of it, following this Lord was the right choice. Given time, this Lord must stand at the peak of the world. Everyone was terrified. It was all because of Yi Zichen's sword. From the power released by this sword, at least in the eyes of these people, it had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Heaven plundering second style. Rumble. In response to Yi Zichen's furious roar, another huge hole appeared in the already cracked space. Another golden sword fell from the sky. The two golden swords reflected off each other, causing the entire world to turn golden under the light of the golden swords. At that moment, Yi Zichen, who had condensed two golden swords at the same time, felt his bones crackle. Golden blood flowed out from his ears and nose. Golden blood, God race. While everyone else was shocked by Yi Zichen's golden swords and submitted to their might, Tianhai couldn't help but shout out when he saw the blood flowing out of Yi Zichen's body. As soon as he finished speaking, he shut his mouth, afraid that others would hear him. Sovereign. Even so, Agio still heard Tianhai's exclamation and looked at him in shock. He's a god race. Didn't they say that the god race was exterminated a long time ago? This is something that happened in the previous universe. I'm not sure. Tianhai shook his head. He noticed everyone else's expressions. From their gazes, it seemed like none of them knew about the god race. Then, he pulled Agio and whispered, "Don't mention this to anyone." But, before Agio could speak, he saw Tianhai's brows sink. Agio could only nod and drop the subject. The god race. They were a special race that existed in the previous universe. They stood above all living things. In order to gain absolute control over the universe, the human race plotted for countless years before launching an all-out attack on the god race. At the time, the human race was subordinate to the god race. However, the god race had never interfered with the human race's affairs. In fact, they treated the human race very well. Even when the humans suddenly launched an attack, the god race still thought that the higher-ups of the human race had come as guests. It wasn't until the humans truly attacked and over half of the god race's clansmen died that the other god race clansmen truly realized why the humans had come. In the end, the god race was exterminated. From the god king to the infants in swaddling clothes, not a single one was spared. After the human race gained absolute control over the universe, they were worried that some of the god race's clansmen would be left outside. In order to prevent the god race from making a comeback, the human race set a rule that any god race clansman that appeared had to be reported immediately, if they could kill them on the spot. The resources provided were enough for an ordinary person to grow to the titled level. Even now, this rule was still in place. Agio didn't understand why the supremacy didn't want him to know. Was it because he didn't want to reveal the youth's identity as a god race clansman? Or was it because he wasn't sure if he was, and was afraid of causing unnecessary trouble for the youth? As a subordinate, it was hard for him to understand the higher-ups' thoughts. What he could do, it was obedience. Little did he know, Tianhai's heart was in turmoil. He was certain Yi Zichen was a god race. This was because no matter what race it was, only the god race's blood was golden. Normally, they were the same as humans, with normal blood flowing in their veins. Only when they released their godhood and used their divine power would the blood in their bodies change into God's blood, becoming pure golden. That golden sword wasn't Yi Zichen's martial spirit either. It was a godhead. The god race's dominance lay in the fact that they could form godheads before even reaching the domain level. Their godheads were far more powerful than the human race's martial spirits. Any martial spirit had to submit before a godhead. He's actually a god race. After so many years, there's still a god race. In other words, there's always been a god race inheritance. I really didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. Tianhai shook his head forcefully. He didn't dare accept the fact that Yi Zichen was a god race clansman. At that moment, heaven plundering 3 strikes. Chapter 2268. You're crazy. When Yi Zichen gnashed his teeth and shouted out the third move, the godhead within his weapon roared angrily in his head. In the void, the rift opened. Yi Zichen released his surging divine power. By the time he released the second move, he was already struggling to withstand the power of the godhead, and blood was flowing out of his mouth and nose. This time, he was so angry that golden blood flowed out of his ears. Imperial Star, hurry up and stop. You should know very well that you can't bear this kind of burden right now. The second style is already the limit of what you can handle. The third style will cause your body to collapse. The godhead comforted Yi Zichen. This was the only thing he could do. The one who'd condensed the godhead was Yi Zichen. In other words, Yi Zichen was his master. Even if a godhead had its own consciousness, it couldn't go against the will of its creator. All he could do was tell Yi Zichen to stop. It was not too late to stop now. Little did they know, by now, Yi Zichen couldn't care less. All he wanted to do was leave. Su Yin was still waiting for him to return. Coco and the others were waiting for him. Descend. Yi Zichen's bones crackled under the immense pressure. He gripped the golden sword in his hand, his veins bulging, and his teeth trembling uncontrollably. Puff! At that moment, a golden mist of blood burst from his body, and golden blood seeped out from the pores under his clothes. Say, future lord. When Yi Zichen did this, the crowd was no longer astonished. Instead, they were so solemn they couldn't speak. Everyone could see that releasing this kind of divine skill, it was a huge burden on Yi Zichen. At this moment, he could not bear it at all. He was fighting with his life on the line, squeezing out his willpower and life force to condense the third golden sword in the void. Everyone was silent. Tianhai sighed in his heart as he watched Yi Zichen, who had risked his life to form the golden sword. It had been a long time since he had felt so powerless. When faced with such a dangerous situation, he couldn't think of any solutions. The only thing he could do was to resign himself to death and entrust his life and future to others. 10,000 years, or tens of thousands of years. All in all, ever since Ouyang became a venerable one, or rather, ever since he was given an honorary title, his life had not been smooth sailing. At the very least, he had never felt so frustrated. Tianhai swore. This feeling was really terrible. No matter what, he couldn't let this kind of situation happen again. He also knew that Yi Zichen was under a lot of pressure, but there was nothing he could do. None of them had ever interacted with the gods, nor did they know what kind of transformation Yi Zichen was undergoing. If they rashly stepped forward to help him, who knew if it would be good or bad for him? Furthermore, when Yi Zichen headed for the edge, he didn't need anyone's help. It was very likely that he was trying to tell the outside world that he didn't need anyone's help. Condense. Yi Zichen growled. As he spoke, the third golden sword finally formed in the void. 3 10-meter-long swords hovered in the air. The golden swords released a fierce and sharp aura. These 3 swords were like the punishment of a god king. The dazzling golden light and the holy and dignified aura made people feel intimidated. God race. God race. You're actually a god race. The youth's expression was frighteningly brilliant. He cupped his face in his hands, and his eyes shone so brightly that no one could look him in the eye. His cheeks were flushed with an inexplicable red. His legs rubbed against each other, as if he'd reached the pinnacle of his life. His expression was one of infatuation, as if he wanted to devour Yi Zichen whole. He didn't know how long it had been since a god race member had appeared. He never would have guessed he'd run into a god race member here. Previously, he'd only wanted to study Zichen's martial soul, but this time, he'd done everything he could to further his research. Where should I start my research? Should I dissect him first? Or test his blood first? No, let's start with his brain. I heard that the god race's godhead condenses in their heads. If I can extract it, you're mine. You're absolutely mine. The youth clutched the air, his voice sickly as he looked at Yi Zichen and muttered to himself. He didn't try to hide anything when he said this. Mu-Yi, who was at the side, heard it clearly. When he heard this, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He subconsciously took a few steps to the side. Even though the youth looked somewhat perverted and neurotic, When he saw the 3 golden swords, he couldn't help but gulp. Hey, are you sure he can't break them? It doesn't matter whether he breaks them or not. The youth rested his chin on his hands, his sickly expression unchanging. He can't escape. I want him. I must have him. This guy. He couldn't help but frown. Ever since he'd met this youth, his temperament had been constantly changing. I have to have him. I must have him. The young man seemed to be possessed as he kept muttering to himself. At that moment, Yi Zichen, who'd condensed 3 golden swords, his eyes suddenly froze. Accumulate. Rumble. The 3 golden swords in the void seemed to have been replenished with energy, and all 3 golden swords began to accumulate power. Before long, Yi Zichen's entire body was covered in golden light. Blood seeped out his eyes. Emperor's Star. That's enough. The godhead roared in Yi Zichen's mind. If this continued, his body would absolutely be torn to shreds. This was no longer a matter of willpower. It was a matter of how much his body could endure. The golden light of the 3 golden swords grew increasingly pure. Yi Zichen's eyes shone with unprecedented determination. Several dozen meters away, over 1,000 formation masters stood outside, forming a formation. When they saw the 3 golden swords, their eyes were filled with terror. It'll break. It'll definitely break. Countless people thought the same thing. There was no way their formation could withstand the attacks of the 3 golden swords. Their formation would definitely break. When that happened, they'd all die here. Hold on. We have thousands of people here. Even a cosmic system level Yi Zichen can't break our seal from the inside, shouted one of the formation masters. Even so, the pressure released by the golden sword brought a strong sense of oppression to everyone present. I'm done. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore. He withdrew his cosmic energy from the formation, then ran off into the distance without even looking back. As more and more people stopped attacking, the seal was already on the verge of breaking before Yi Zichen could even attack. At that moment, Yi Zichen looked up and roared. Break! Chapter 2269. The 3 golden swords descended. These 3 swords could be said to destroy the heavens and the earth. Before the swords even landed, the surrounding formation masters were already scared out of their wits. They hurriedly retracted their weapons and ran away. At the beginning, the seal might have been a bit of a threat to Yi Zichen, but after losing the support of so many formation masters and the universe's energy, the 3 golden swords sliced through the seal as easily as paper. Break the formation! Yi Zichen raised his weapon. Their weapons shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. The seal that trapped them also shattered into pieces and shattered into pieces. Charge! Tianhai waved his weapon. The humans trapped outside the village, including those who'd already collapsed, all lit up when they saw the possibility of survival. We're alive, we're alive. Returning Windblade, who'd been in a daze just a second ago, seemed to have transformed into a different person in the next. He gripped his weapon and charged to the front. Kill! Countless people charged out. Seeing this, Mu couldn't hold himself back any longer. However, the youth's eyes shone even brighter. This is the power a martial soul should have, as expected of a high-level race. This level of power is enough for them to look down on the entire universe. The 3 golden swords seemed like they were going to tear the heavens and the earth apart. When the swords landed, surging divine power poured out, leaving 3 abyss-like cracks in the ground. Yi Zichen's 3 swords had carved out a 5-kilometer radius around the village's western gate into 4 pieces of land. How could they be wiped out with this kind of power? Are they all idiots? Even if the humans suddenly attacked, there's no way the gods could be wiped out in the face of absolute power. This is the god race. Their condensed godheads are all top-grade martial souls. Even among the humans in the universe, top-grade martial souls are as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. Their numbers are on par with the masters of all 4 elements. Masters of all 4 elements. An entire universe might not even have one. You can imagine how rare top-grade martial souls are. The youth cursed inwardly. He cursed the god's stupidity. The gods had such power, yet they were wiped out. That was the funniest ending for them. Fortunately, the heavens took pity on him. He'd actually run into Yi Zichen. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Suddenly, Mu-Yi grabbed the front of the young man's clothes. This time, he really felt that he was grabbed. The young man, who was immersed in his own world, did not hear what Mu-Yi said. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Mu-Yi, only to see a face filled with anger and hatred. "Let go. Ha! How dare you threaten me?" Mu-Yi raised his hand and slapped the young man. This slap landed squarely on the young man's face. A trickle of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. If one looked closely, his blood was not pure red. There was also a bit of dark gold in the red. Haha, I caught him. Feeling the blood flowing down from the corner of the young man's mouth, Mu-Yi couldn't help but smile. After that, he grabbed the young man's clothes even harder. She was afraid that he would escape if she was not careful. "I told you to let go." The young man's eyes were cold. "What? So what if I don't let go?" Mu-Yi grabbed the young man's clothes and lifted him in front of him. "Brat, you're my hands now, and you still want to threaten me? Aren't you a bit too naive?" "You're too naive." The young man squinted his eyes. The young man narrowed his eyes into slits, and a cold glint flashed in them. "You might not know, but my surname is Gongsun." "So what?" Mu-Yi did not take the young man's words to heart. He grabbed the young man's clothes. "I don't care if your surname is Gongsun or something else. Now that these people ran away, you need to give me a reasonable explanation. Didn't you swear that they wouldn't be able to escape? Why are they all running now? They ran? Can't you go and catch them?" asked the young man. "It's your responsibility. You're not going to do anything just because I swore? Or do you know that you're really stupid and can't think of any good ideas, so you can only rely on my wisdom? You're seeking death." Mu-Yi slapped down. "Huh." The young man sneered disdainfully. Mu-Yi retracted his hand midway. "I won't kill you. I'll keep you alive. I advise you to find them now. Otherwise, you'll suffer for the rest of your life. See, you don't dare to kill me." The young man smiled disdainfully, his eyes filled with playfulness. "You have to rely on me now because you're too stupid. You really don't know how to deal with the current situation. You think I don't dare to kill you?" Mu-Yi shouted angrily. "You just don't dare. Furthermore, do you think you can kill me?" The young man shrugged and glanced at Mu-Yi's hand that had succeeded in grabbing his clothes. "Do you really think you've caught me now? When you slapped me just now, do you think I'm completely in your hands? Don't try to scare me with your lies." Mu-Yi shouted. "I told you, my surname is Gongsun." The young man slowly grabbed Mu-Yi's arm. "A native like you might not know what the surname Gongsun represents. Then let me tell you, our Gongsun family is born with the ability to control space." Whoosh! In an instant, the youth that was grabbed by Mu-Yi disappeared from Mu-Yi's sight. In the next instant, Mu-Yi felt a chill in his chest. A dagger had stabbed into his chest. As for where it had come from, Mu-Yi had no idea at all. Space element controls space. Everything here is under my control. If I hadn't been distracted just now, do you think you could have hit me? The young man wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. When he saw the dark gold on his palm, his eyes instantly froze. "You actually made me lose my god blood. You really deserve to die." At that moment, several daggers stabbed into Mu-Yi's body. Mu-Yi still didn't know where they had come from, but he had already become a hedgehog with daggers all over his body. "I wanted to play with you a little longer, but you're too stupid. Coincidentally, I'm in a bad mood and can't be bothered to play with you. You know, I said from the start that they won't be able to escape. You idiot, all you have to do is watch me perform. Why do you have to provoke me again and again? You have no brains and a bad temper. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're weak?" The young man's aura suddenly changed. Mu-Yi glared at him and heard the young man's voice. "I'll let you die knowing. Realm, star rank. Name Gongsun Taiyin." Chapter 2270. Star rank. Mu-Yi stretched out his hand as if he wanted to grab Gongsun Taiyin. This person, from the beginning, he had been pretending to be a level 1 domain expert. Actually, you could have lived. Gongsun Taiyin shook his head in disdain. Raising his hand, dozens of daggers stabbed into Mu-Yi's body. Among them, several daggers stabbed into his head. The first dagger stabbed into his heart, Then the other daggers destroyed his joints, and finally the central nervous system of his brain. Even if Mu-Yi wanted counterattack before he died, there was no possibility. Right now, it was impossible for him to even move his lips. He could only silently feel his life slipping away, waiting for it to come to an end. Dong! When the blood flowed out, Mu-Yi fell heavily to the ground. Before this, he had felt Gongsun Taiyin's pitiful gaze. Rest in peace. With that, Gongsun Taiyin left in front of Mu-Yi. Not long after he left, several native experts rushed over to the village. They were the guards at the other village gates. Not long ago, the village suffered a fatal blow. For some reason, a large number of First Universe experts suddenly rushed in from the east, south, and north of the village. These people weren't very strong, but with their numbers, they forced the natives to retreat. The three formation masters and the guards protecting them all died in battle. After the seal was broken, the invaders who were trapped inside cooperated with the reinforcements outside to surround the natives in the middle. The natives suffered heavy casualties. Looking at the current situation, there was no way to continue the purge plan. These guards were also disheveled and dirty, their bodies soaked in dark red blood, and there were many knife wounds on their bodies. They came to find Mu-Yi to discuss a countermeasure. Stop or continue. Who would have thought that when they arrived in front of Mu-Yi, they would see him lying in a pool of blood with his body pierced full of holes like a hornet's nest? He no longer had any business to speak of. Lord Mu-Yi. The guard leaders rushed up and infused cosmic energy into Mu-Yi's body. With the replenishment and recovery of the cosmic energy, Mu-One's situation seemed to have improved a little. Lord, we lost. The invaders have reinforcements, and their numbers are 100 times greater than ours. This purge plan can no longer continue. Gongsun Taiyin. Mu-Yi moved his lips and slowly raised his hand. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. The guards beside him didn't hear him clearly. Just as they were about to listen, Mu-Yi's neck tilted to the side, and he was no longer breathing. My lord, Lord Mu-Yi. The leader of the guards shook Mu-Yi and shouted, Sir has already gone. F***CK. Then are we going to continue with the purge or not? A burly guard leader angrily rebuked. Since you know he's going to die, leave a message before he dies. Let's not continue. I also suggest not continuing. The other two guard leaders followed suit. The burly guard leader exhaled deeply. His breath was so hot that 2 white streams of hot air could be seen coming out from his nostrils. F***CK, what is this? The burly guard leader shook his fist. That's right. Old who should be watching over here. Why can't I see anyone on their side? Lord Mu-Yi was attacked. Shouldn't they send reinforcements? We were all attacked. How good do you think his situation is? Another guard leader frowned. That's it. This purge plan is over. I don't want to see any more deaths in the village. What about the invaders? Let them go. What about our dead brothers? Aren't we going to avenge them? The burly guard leader shouted. Do you know how many people died at our north gate? 37,645 people. Do you know how many people from our village participated in the battle this time? The casualties at our south gate and east gate are no less than yours. In that case, why don't you avenge our brothers? If we let those invaders escape, wouldn't our brothers have died in vain? The burly guard leader shouted angrily. Then go and avenge them. One of the guards shouted. Now the invaders' reinforcements are everywhere outside. Go and avenge your dead brothers. Let's see how many you can kill in one trip. In an instant, the burly guard leader fell silent. Olnyo, it's not up to us to decide now. Revenge? How can we avenge them? Are you still thinking of revenge? Suddenly, a middle-aged man walked out from behind the guard leaders. This man was the former village chief, Su-Hu. It's good enough that they don't come to us for revenge. You know it yourself. Tonight, we killed millions of invaders. If they come to us for trouble, how can we resist them? Village chief. The other guard leaders followed suit and greeted him as well. Where have you been all this time? We tried to look for you several times, but Lord Mu-Yi told us that you went to another village. Huh, I'm back now, aren't I? Su-Hu smiled silently, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The day had finally come. He could finally appear in front of the villagers again. Village chief, we underestimated the number of invaders. Now our village is surrounded by invaders. What should we do in the future? The guard leader of the South Gate said, I know the situation in the village. The purge plan is over. The villagers who died in the battle have high hopes. As for those invaders, I'll take care of them. Our village has also suffered a great loss in this battle. Let's take a good rest. Suhu patted the shoulder of the guard leader of the South Gate and gave him a meaningful look. The guard leader of the South Gate was obviously a smart man. Noticing Suhu's gaze and the palm on his shoulder, he instantly understood Suhu's intention. Yes, village chief. He nodded at Suhu happily. If he wasn't wrong, Suhu was going to cultivate him as the next confidant, which was the position that Mu-Yi used to be, below one person above thousands. Several guard leaders, among them, the Southgate guard leader carried Mu-Yi's body and left in front of Suhu. Suhu stayed where he was. Looking at the village that he had seen for decades, he had never felt that the village was so beautiful, even if it was in a mess now, and the smell of blood lingered in the village. He still felt that the village was too beautiful. This feeling of regaining what was lost. He didn't want to lose this village anymore, ever. He must rely on his own strength to protect his village again. Protect everything here. Protect everything that belonged to him. Chapter 2271. Hurry up and retreat. The seal shattered. After despair came hope. After hope came despair. After despair came hope. After despair came hope. No one knew what was going on in the village. Right now, they were running out like crazy, hoping that Tansheng would really be able to make it out alive this time. Rustle. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps rang out in the distance. From the sound, it was obvious that there were many of them. The people who'd just emerged from the seal were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bough. When they heard the footsteps, their eyes filled with terror. They gripped their weapons tightly, not daring to move. Careful! Tianhai raised his hand and signaled for the others to stay put. He turned to look at Yi Zichen. He'd forcefully condensed the third heaven plundering stance and was already heavily injured. If more natives attacked, they could no longer rely on Yi Zichen to break out of this predicament. Future God, Meng Luo and the flame rat stood by his side, watching over him even as golden blood flowed out of his body. It's always like this. I'm about to break down. Jingling grabbed at her hair, messing it up like a waterfall. You'll break down too? Tianhai raised his eyebrows. I can't. Jingling frowned. Who can stand this? Just as we had a glimmer of hope, it's extinguished. Then we have a glimmer of hope, then it's extinguished again. If you can't, then just be straightforward. It's either live or die. That's right, nodded Steelcase. Haha, it's fine. I doubt it'll be natives chasing us this time, laughed Tianhai. Tianhai smiled, then took off his robe and placed it on Yi Zichen's body. Before that, he even used the robe to wipe away the blood on Yi Zichen's face. No one knew why he'd done this. Only Agio knew that Tianhai was worried about others finding out about the gods, so he purposely cleaned up his golden blood to prevent others from finding out. He didn't know whether Tianhai was right or wrong. The human universe's constitution clearly stated that any news of a god had to be reported to the higher-ups as soon as possible. They couldn't protect the god. If they were discovered, they'd be labeled as a traitor and be punished by the humans. What Tianhai was doing was protecting Yi Zichen. He'd done this despite knowing he was a god. If the higher-ups blamed him, Tianhai wouldn't even have a chance to argue. Venerable, in order to repay this debt, you pushed your entire family into the abyss. Aju sighed in his heart. Yi Zichen subconsciously glanced at Tianhai, only to see Tianhai smile back at him. Don't come out later. Tianhai patted Yi Zichen's shoulders, then looked solemnly at the flame rat and Meng Luo. You two look after the future. Don't let anyone see him. Roar. Meng Luo nodded obediently. She didn't know why Tianhai wanted her to do this, but her strong point was be obedient. She didn't like to think about problems. She would obediently do whatever others asked her to do. The flame rat narrowed its eyes. Ever since the incident with Hua Jianro and Bai Sei, he had changed a lot. He had tried to think independently and make decisions. Don't think too much. I'm doing this for his own good. Tianhai patted the flame rat's shoulder and walked forward. The future is too hard. He has already done enough for us. Leave the rest to us. Of course, Steel Kiki nodded. It was thanks to Yi Zichen's care that they managed to find hope in the depths of despair. He had already done too much for the people here. Now that he was heavily injured, it was only natural for them to take care of the rest. Sorry for troubling the future deity for so long. We have to repay him. I don't like the feeling of relying on the deity for everything at all, Jingling said. I really like you. Yi Zichen smiled. Tianhai squinted his eyes and looked Jingling up and down. Are you interested in being my 86th concubine? Sovereign, it's the 90th concubine, Gio reminded. Steel Kiki couldn't help but be stunned as he looked at Tianhai and Jingling. Big brother Tianhai is seriously so direct. But no one would agree in this sort of situation, right? Sure. Jingling actually nodded with a smile. Unexpectedly, Jingling smiled and nodded. I could be your concubine. Can you tell me who you are? Why don't we meet in real life? I will definitely be gentle to you, and you will never be able to leave me in this life. Gulp. Even Steel Kiki could sense the murderous intent in Jingling's words. Tianhai couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, then laughed. All right. I'll go to the Ling Corporation to find you when we return. You're mine for sure. I'll wait for you. Jingling smiled warmly. The tension between Tianhai and Jingling was already filled with tension before they even saw the people in the forest. Steel Kiki subconsciously took a few steps back. He felt like this place was no longer suitable for him to stay. At that very moment, the footsteps in the forest got closer and closer. Tianhai and Jingling looked at each other, then looked forward. About half a minute later, dozens of people ran out of the forest. From their clothes, it could be seen that they were dressed like this. Universe 1. The people who ran out earlier seemed to be scouts. When they saw Tianhai and Jingling, they ran back. Not long later, at least 1 million humans from the Universe 1 walked out from the forest. Sorry, we're late. The person at the very front was a middle-aged man with an average build and a mellow expression. Tianhai walked up when he heard that. However, an afterimage had already charged towards the middle-aged man even faster than him. Third uncle. The person who rushed out was Gulu. She hugged the middle-aged man tightly, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. Little Lu, you're still alive. The middle-aged man hugged Gulu and carefully looked her up and down. Thank the heavens and earth, you're still alive. That's great. Third uncle. Gulu couldn't stop sobbing. The middle-aged man patted her little head and walked towards Tianhai. How should I address you, sir? Tianhai. Sir Tianhai. It seems like you're the leader here. May I ask if everyone from the West Gate is here? Gulu's third uncle asked. That's right. Tianhai nodded. Compared to the other exits, the West Gate had the least number of people. This was because the West Gate had already been cleared out. They tried to break through from the West Gate after clearing them out, so the number of people didn't exceed 10,000 at first. Gulu's third uncle nodded and immediately spoke. Then, may I ask if there's a human called the Future here? Chapter 2272. Future. Tianhai frowned and stared at the person before him. Perhaps the person felt that his question was too sudden, so he revealed his identity with a smile. I forgot to introduce myself. Gu Feng. Even though the middle-aged man only said 2 words, his eyes were filled with confidence, as though saying the name would make others recognize him. Gu Feng. Tianhai narrowed his eyes when he heard this. It wasn't until Ajio whispered a few words in his ear that he nodded in understanding. You're Sky Valley King's younger brother, one of the 2 titles of Wasp Valley. Sky Biho? Yes. Sky Biho nodded. I'm from the Virtual World Corporation. My title is Sky Biho, my family is Wasp Valley, and Gulu is my niece. Noble rank. Many people in the surroundings were shocked. Even though there were many noble ranks in the universe, they were few and far between among the human population. More importantly, being noble meant that one had a very high understanding of the laws of the universe. In terms of human power, domains, stars, galaxies, universes, generals, commanders, and titles were all at the universe level. It wasn't a breakthrough in the realm, but the understanding of the laws of the universe. For example, the initial strength of the universe level was 1. When you could unleash strength of 10, you would be at the general level, 100 would be the commander level, 1000 would be the earl level, and so on. The universe level, in simple terms, was the measurement of human power in the later stages. The person before them was a noble. This meant that his strength was equivalent to 10,000 times that of the universe level. The name, Heavenly Bee Marquis, weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. Steelcase, Blue Shield Clan 0713, and even Jingling subconsciously raised their eyebrows. If it weren't for Agio, Tian Hai wouldn't even know who Gu Feng was. The universe was vast. Not everyone of the titled rank and above would know each other. Furthermore, Tian Hai was at the sovereign level. He couldn't even come into contact with titled warriors. People from his era, those that could survive until now, would at least be dukes. Why are you looking for the future? Tian Hai didn't hold back, even though the other party had revealed his identity. In the past, he would have handed the future to the Virtual World Corporation. However, his body was collapsing, and his golden blood was still flowing out. He had to be even more careful when dealing with titled battle pet warriors. It was very likely that the other party also knew the Protoss, or knew the history and characteristics of the Protoss. If they found out, it would not be a good thing for the current situation in the future. Gu Feng's expression changed in response to Tian Hai's question. After all, he was a marquis and one of the Bee Valley's 2 titled marquises. He had some prestige in the universe. Even some dukes and kings would be very polite to him. No matter what, there was a conferred king in his family. Tian Hai's tone made it seem as if he didn't place their Bee Valley in his eyes at all. His words were also arrogant and forceful. In his mind, he had never heard of such a person, much less had any impression of the name Tian Hai. Fortunately, he didn't have the bad temper of titled masters. Even in the face of Tian Hai's questioning, he merely furrowed his brows and smiled amiably. Sir Amami, I'll tell you the truth. Everyone here today is from our Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank. The North, South, and South gates have already been occupied by our people. The West gate's position is relatively far. That's why we're a bit late. For this trip, there are a total of 4 titled warriors. The East gate is the Universe Union Bank's Duke Ying. The North gate is our Virtual World Company's Aries Ho. The South gate is also our Sky River Earl. The West gate is led by me. The Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank had arrived at the same time. The behemoths of the 2 universes had sent 4 titled battle pet warriors to lead the team. Everyone raised their eyebrows. Sky Biho had just mentioned future. What you say is useless to our lord. Seeing that Tian Hai wasn't speaking, Agio knew that he didn't want to waste his breath, so he spoke on behalf of Tian Hai. Just tell us what you're here for. If you don't make it clear, we won't say anything. All right, I'll tell you everything. Sky Biho smiled and spoke to Tian Hai. The Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank have named to save future. For this trip, we've mobilized all the experts from the Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank in Milky Way. The total number is 39,650,000. If Future is still alive, we will all retreat. If you have Future here, we will search the village. If we confirm that he is dead, we will wipe out the entire village. Just now, there was no news of Future in the north, south, east, or west. That's why I asked about Future right from the start. If you don't have him here either, then we will proceed to the next step. Gulp. Mobilizing 40 million people was to ensure Future's safety. Everyone who knew Yi Zichen subconsciously looked towards his direction, and the same thought flashed through their minds. Just who was he to be able to alarm the 2 major powers and send out so many experts? Future, great God. The Flame Rat and Meng Luo pursed their lips and opened their eyes wide. The Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank are specifically looking for Future? Tian Hai squinted his eyes. Which of your families does he belong to? I don't know about that. Sky Biho shook his head. My lord, Haju said subconsciously. He felt like Tian Hai shouldn't ask too much. No matter what, they were still the Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank. He's with me now. Tianhai let out a deep breath, then said to the Sky Bee-ho, "That's great," the Sky Bee-ho smiled. "It's fortunate that he's with you. Since that's the case, can you let me see him and make sure that he know?" Tianhai directly interrupted the Sky Bee-ho. "Future is still alive. That's all I can tell you. As for the rest, sorry, I can't tell you. Also, you can't see him either. He's very heavily injured right now, so he can't see anyone. About this, if there's any problem, then tell your family's lord to come and find me," Tianhai said. Tianhai said without any explanation, "All right, you guys can leave now. We have to leave after we leave the blocked area. Oh yeah, I hope the virtual world company can give us an explanation. Why? Why is the network blocked here, and why are so many of us in jail?" Even the mild-tempered Sky Bee-ho felt a bit angry when he was treated like that. "All right, then may I ask your title? Isn't Lording here? Just go and ask him. Just say that you need to find me, Tianhai. He will naturally tell you who I am." Chapter 2273. To be able to be so fearless. To be so casual when he mentioned Duke Eagle. It was obvious that this person's position in the universe wasn't low. Sky Bee Marquis thought, following which he glanced at Gulu. He probably didn't want to know Sky C's position from Gulu. He just wanted to confirm if Future was really here, if he was still alive. Gulu nodded. Even though she was scared to the point of breaking down, she was smart enough to understand what Sky Bee Marquis meant. After confirming Future's safety, Sky Bee Marquis nodded. "Okay, since that's the case, Gulu will take her leave. Please forgive me for offending you. If my superiors ask, I will tell them everything you have said in detail." "No problem. You have to report your work." Sky C nodded. "Let's go." Sky Bee-ho waved his hand, and the vast army of the Virtual World Corporation and the Universe United Bank left in front of everyone. Only after they left did Sky C let out a sigh of relief. "Sovereign, why didn't you just say who you are?" Gio frowned. If Sky C had said who he was, he definitely wouldn't have gotten into such a conflict with Sky Bee Marquis. He's a titled battle pet warrior and a member of the Virtual World Company. "Gio, you've been talking too much recently." Suddenly, Sky C's expression darkened. Gio, who was still trying to console Sky C, hurriedly shut his mouth and lowered his head, not saying another word. As a subordinate, he had treated his lord with a preaching tone several times. This was no longer something a subordinate should do. Gio had good intentions, but he forgot his position. "I didn't expect you to have such a domineering side." Jingling smiled. "You don't even give face to the Universe Union Bank and the Virtual World Company. I'm really curious about you." "Don't rush, I'll find you." Tianhai's expression changed, and he became somewhat glib-tongued again. "You mind?" Jingling pouted. She couldn't be bothered with this shameless sovereign. "Why didn't you let Sky Bee Marquis see Future? Maybe what I'm saying now is a little thoughtless from what I see. This is actually a very simple matter. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Of course I have my own thoughts." Tianhai did not explain too much. Even if he was interested in Jingling, it did not mean that he would tell her everything. He walked towards Yi Zichen's position. By now, Yi Zichen was already in a state of unconsciousness. His entire consciousness was scattered. The golden blood was no longer flowing out. Seeing this, Tianhai heaved a sigh of relief. "All right, let's go. I'm guessing that the blocked area won't last long. Let's go offline as soon as we leave the blocked area." Everyone left in a hurry. Tianhai stayed by Yi Zichen's side and observed him. About half an hour later, after leaving the blocked area, everyone received a huge amount of messages in the virtual network. Some of them replied before logging out of the game. There was a consciousness in the virtual network crying bitterly with his family. Some people even left the game. They didn't want to stay in this godforsaken place any longer. They were afraid that something bad would happen if they stayed even a second longer. It was the same for the Flame Rat and Menlo. When they left the blocked area, they received at least several tens of thousands of messages. All of them were sent by their seniors, as well as quite a few of their friends. "Tianhai, Menlo, Flame Rat, let's log off as well." Jingling and company walked up. At that moment, a large number of humans from the Universe One appeared in the distance. These people should be the survivors that were rescued by the Virtual World Corporation and the Universe Union Bank. Among these people, they also saw a fellow. Might of the hegemon. Steelcase frowned. He didn't expect that guy to actually survive the village as well. It was clear that he was quite frightened. He was in a mental state, while his pupils were unfocused, as if he had gone mad. The moment he left the blocked area, he immediately left the second universe. This guy is actually still alive. Jingling frowned. Isn't it better that he's alive? He has to pay for his actions. If he dies, isn't that letting him off too easily? Tianhai squinted his eyes. Don't worry, I will complain about his actions to the Virtual World Corporation. No matter who is standing behind him, he will get the punishment he deserves. I'll complain when I get back as well. Me too. Us too. After Jingling, Blue Shield Clan 0713, and Steelcase spoke up, the other survivors around them also followed suit. If it wasn't for this guy, my brother wouldn't have died. More and more people shouted in unison. They had survived, but they couldn't forget Might's evil deeds. Let's complain together. Tianhai smiled at the crowd. Jingling and the rest left the game. When most of the people had left, Tianhai looked at the flame rat and Meng Luo. We will definitely complain too. Meng Luo clenched her fists and said seriously. Of course you will. You two have special statuses. You can complain directly to the Emperor, so it's much better than others. Remember, to add fuel to the fire, you have to mess with that guy, Tianhai said with a smile. Then his expression turned serious. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. Huh? Meng Luo didn't understand. Aren't you two going to leave? We can't. Meng Luo shook her head. Sister Ro and Sister, but you haven't woken up yet. The future god is in a terrible condition too. We have to take care of him. All right. Tianhai patted Meng Luo's head. Then let me ask you, did the future bleed just now? Yes, golden blood, Meng Luo said. Meng Luo said, Uncle Amami, why is the future almighty god's blood golden and mine red? Remember, the future's blood is red, Tianhai suddenly said solemnly. He's clearly red. Tianhai's gaze suddenly turned terrifyingly serious. Remember, the future's blood is red. Anyone who mentions it will be red. Also, don't tell anyone about what happened today, got it? Even if you must say it, his blood is red. Why? Meng Luo didn't understand. Before she could speak, the flame rat shook its head at her and spoke to Tianhai. We remember, the future god's blood is red. Also, you guys, Tianhai looked at Han Qing and the rest. The blood of your lord is red, got it? Chapter 2274. Let's go back to. After a few reminders, Tianhai twisted his neck and left the page from Second World. In this life of his, to reach his current position, he must have gone through a lot of hardships. However, he would never forget what had happened that night for the rest of his life. A venerable. He almost died in a small game, even though this game was special. Yes, venerable. Ajiu followed Tianhai and turned into virtual data in front of the flame rat and the others. Bit by bit, they turned into starlight and left. Not long after Tianhai left the game, a life planet inhabited by humans. It was obvious that this planet had been modified. The planet had a total of 6 layers. The people who lived here lived in different planes according to their class and wealth. On this planet, E-class cosmic energy cannons could be seen everywhere in a charged state. E-grade cosmic energy cannons. They could instantly kill universe warlord-level experts. The energy cannons were extremely expensive to build. The energy cannons released required a lot of resources to be recharged. These cannons were filled with cosmic energy. It could be seen that this life planet was in a period of war. That was why there were so many cosmic energy cannons on a life planet where humans lived. The palace in the sky of the life planet. The palace was as big as an aurora, with a diameter of more than 70 million kilometers. The people living here were the highest rulers of this planet. Slap. In the palace, a loud slap resounded through the entire palace. Blood seeped out of the mouth of the person who was slapped. However, after being slapped, he kept his head down, not even daring to frown. Ajiu, do you know why I slapped you? Yes. Ajiu lowered his head. I was offside. Good that you know. The man standing in front of Ajiu had eyes like a fierce tiger. He wore an earthy yellow robe, and his eyes exuded a heroic spirit that looked down on the world. He was Tian Hai. He was also the ruler of this life planet, or rather this life galaxy. You've been with me for almost 100,000 years. You've been doing very well all this time, but you've really forgotten your place recently. I hope this slap will wake you up a little. I know I was wrong. There was no resentment in Agio's eyes. They were filled with seriousness and repentance. I will reflect during this period. I know what you're afraid of. Not long after, Tian Hai let out a long sigh, shaking his head as he looked at the energy cannons outside that numbered in the 5 digits. Our galaxy is in a state of war. You don't want me to cause trouble at this time and offend the Virtual World Company and the Universe Union Bank, right? It's just internal strife. The Venerable One has his own plans. I was too worried. Gio shook his head. That's not what you're thinking. Tian Hai chuckled. We're not as good as we were in the past. This time, your older sister died in battle, so we had no choice but to withdraw our forces here. Actually, we've already lost in terms of morale. Agio didn't answer, but when Tian Hai mentioned his sister, he subconsciously clenched his fists. His sister. He had followed Tian Hai ever since he was a domain-level master, and even after he became a monarch, he had never left his side. 3 years ago, a war of aggression suddenly broke out in their galaxy. In fact, this was a very common practice among the human race. Many galaxies that wanted to expand would invade their neighboring galaxies. The higher-ups of the human race turned a blind eye to this. They really couldn't do anything about it. The entire human race had a total of 1080 universes. Every galaxy and planet around these universes had wars and invasions every day. They couldn't do anything about it, even if they wanted to. To prevent such wars from happening frequently, the higher-ups of the human race came up with countermeasures. They set up law enforcement forces in the universe. However, the law enforcement forces had no way of interfering in wars of cosmic system level and above. Overlords and venerable ones had to guard the borders of the universe. As such, when there was a cosmic system level war, as long as it wasn't too overboard, the entire galaxy would be destroyed. They wouldn't interfere. At most, they would criticize after the war or appear before the galaxy was destroyed. This war of aggression has been planned for a long time by the other party. Tian Hai let out a long breath, squinting his eyes as he looked outside. Will we go to the second world? That's because our galaxy's resources are pretty much depleted, and we don't have any allies to support us. I know what you're thinking. If we were to become enemies with them now, we really wouldn't have any way out. Venerable One, subordinate. Agio gritted his teeth as though he wanted to speak, but his words were filled with hesitation. Speak. Tian Hai spoke. Subordinate is slow-witted. Since you already know, why are you still doing this? Agio pursed his lips. With your status and power, no matter which family you go to, they will definitely accept you. The best choice for us is the Virtual World Corporation and the Universe Union Bank. Why do you still want to provoke them? Just for the future. Continue. Subordinate doesn't dare. Agio shook his head. Agio, you're not like your sister at all. Do you know why I said that? Tian Hai looked at Agio and patted his head like a senior to a junior. Do you know why your sister is still by my side, even though she's already a country lord? With her power, she could totally control an entire galaxy. My sister respects you. Agio replied. Perhaps you're right, but more importantly, I once gave her a mouthful of dry rations. Tian Hai spoke. Back then, when I met your sister, she hadn't eaten for many days. At that time, she wasn't at the domain level yet. It was because of this dry rations that she used her life to repay me. People, you have to know how to repay favors. In the future, he used his life to save us. Regardless of whether he came from me or not, we've all received his favor. This favor must be repaid. Tian Hai's words were filled with seriousness. My sister has a favor to repay you, but Agio seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he still gritted his teeth and swallowed the words at the tip of his tongue. Just say it. Why won't you say it? Tian Hai's lips curled up. You want to say that your sister actually likes me a little? But Agio, I can't possibly accept her. Why? Agio didn't refute Tianhai. He knew very well that his sister's feelings for Tianhai had already surpassed that of a superior and subordinate. Because I'm an emotionless person, these wives of mine, without exception, are all political marriages. I need the support of their families to stabilize my already shaky position. From the moment I decided on this marriage, I no longer have the right to marry your sister. Chapter 2275. Agio remained silent. Even though Tianhai's words were very kind, he still couldn't accept that his sister's infatuation wouldn't end well. Unfortunately, his sister had already passed away. The cosmic sea shattered, and not even the last wisp of his soul remained. At this point, all of this was no longer important. All he wanted now was to avenge his sister. Let those invaders pay with blood. Venerable one, there's actually something that's been bothering me for a long time. Since you mentioned hitting my sister, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you a question. Speak. How did my sister die? At this point, Agio's eyes had already turned crimson. He clenched his fists so tightly that his entire body couldn't help but tremble. I don't understand. My sister is already a universe country leader level. She's only a step away from the night level. He's already a top-notch existence in this universe. It's even rarer to be able to make her instantly vanish without even being able to send out a distress signal. I asked you before, but you didn't answer me. This time, I don't understand. Why did my sister die? Actually, you already know, don't you? Inexplicably, Tianhai sighed and patted Agio on the shoulder. Agio instantly trembled and looked at Tianhai with a bitter smile. It's really them. Actually, I know about your secret investigation. Tianhai exhaled deeply and looked into the distance. Since you've asked this much, it means that you already know. Since that's the case, I won't hide it from you. That's right, it's them. No wonder. Agio's lips kept trembling, and the aura released from his body was like a volcano that was about to erupt magma. Universe country leader. Even supremacies and overlords might not be able to kill them in an instant. Only the most exalted one. After secretly investigating for a long time, all the information Agio found pointed to the same person. No wonder the Supremes Association didn't come out to investigate. Universe country leader. Even if it's a galactic invasion war and a monarch has died, how could the Supremes Association remain silent? It really is him. Who else could it be? Tianhai smiled bitterly. Even if you use your toes to think, do you think that a small class 3-star system would dare to invade the star system that your sister and I are overseeing? Why do you think I spent so much money to buy so many cosmic energy cannons from the Weapon Alliance? I will definitely tear him to pieces, Aju said with bloodshot eyes. There's no need for you. If it's possible, I'll make his life a living hell. Tianhai narrowed his eyes, which were also filled with anger. After a brief moment of anger, Agio suddenly regained his senses. Venerable one, if they're the ones behind this, can we really survive? It doesn't matter if I live or not. Tianhai shrugged. Don't worry. As long as I don't die, I'll fight them to the death. Even if my galaxy is destroyed, even if I have nothing left, I will never let him go. If I can't kill him, I will destroy his galaxy. If I can't destroy his galaxy, I will secretly destroy his people. I'm a venerable. Even if I can't bully overlords and supreme beings, I can still bully others. The actions of those people had truly enraged Tianhai. In order to smoothly finish him off, those people had specially assassinated Agio's sister, who was handling matters outside. This was already the bottom line of his tolerance. Even if the planet was destroyed, he could tolerate it. A gentleman's revenge was never too late. He was a venerable one. His lifespan was eternal. He could endure silently. But Agio's sister was dead. He didn't have any reason to endure it anymore. Why'd they do this? Agio frowned. We have no conflict with them. Maybe it's for the master of the galaxy. Tianhai sighed and said, in the past, I had some contact with the master of the galaxy. Our relationship was not bad. I can't think of any other reason. This is the only reason. That despicable person. Agio gritted his teeth and shouted angrily. His debt to the master of the galaxy was higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea. When the Milky Way was destroyed, his galaxy could have helped, but he did not. After that, the Milky Way became a wanted man. I think it was most likely because of him. Agio, that's enough. Suddenly, Tianhai's gaze darkened. His words were filled with warnings and reminders for Agio. You've been talking too much recently. Whether it's what should or shouldn't be said, it's too much. I don't want this to be the last time. Some things had to be said without saying it out loud. Although everyone knew this in their hearts, before anyone pointed it out, whoever said it would be breaking a taboo. It didn't matter if that person was the one who betrayed the master of the galaxy. Tianhai now held a high position in the human race. Most of the people in the Paragon Association were on good terms with him. His network in the universe was complicated. Like what Agio had said just now, if they were in the outside world or in the virtual world, it wouldn't end well for him if those people found out. Agio was her only family. Tianhai regretted not protecting her for the rest of his life. He didn't want to fail to take care of Agio in the end. I understand. Agio nodded silently. He understood the deeper meaning behind Tianhai's words. But there was no way to hide his anger. He couldn't swallow his sister's blood feud no matter what. But he also knew his and Tianhai's strength wasn't enough to shake such a colossus. They needed to lie low and slowly wait for an opportunity. At least before taking revenge, they had to have the strength to protect themselves. Venerable, should we contact the head of the Virtual World Group or the head of the Universe Union Bank? Agio hesitated for a moment before saying, the heads of the Virtual World Group and the Universe Union Bank are old friends of the Master of the Galaxy. Or we can look for the old president of the Paragon Association. He's the teacher of the Master of the Galaxy. The Master of the Galaxy fought for him and took the lead. If we tell them about this, they might... You're still thinking too simply. Tianhai frowned and looked at Agio. He couldn't help but sigh. There was still too much difference between him and his sister. If his sister was here, she definitely wouldn't say such a thing. In the end, it was because he had too little experience. Agio had always been well taken care of by his sister. His understanding of the scheming in the universe was still too shallow. Old friends. So what if they were old friends? That person and the Master of the Galaxy were sworn brothers. The Master of the Galaxy was more grateful to him than anyone else in the universe. What was the result? He still stabbed the Master of the Galaxy in the back. The Milky Way was destroyed. The fate of the Master of the Galaxy was unknown. Do you know that there's an octagonal table conference among humans? The president has veto power and decision-making power. Some time ago, the Master of the Galaxy was labeled as a traitor to the human race. Do you think the old president is trustworthy? There are a few other leaders. Do you know who voted against it and who voted for it? We can't count on anyone. We can only count on ourselves. Agio, you must remember, in this universe, don't think about relying on others. If you want something, fight for it yourself. Only what you bring yourself is yours. Everything else is fake. Chapter 2276. He couldn't trust anyone. That was Tianhai's understanding of the universe. Furthermore, he wasn't the type to live under someone else's roof. If he really wanted to, he would have accepted the Master of the Galaxy's invitation back when he was still Marquis. The overlords and sovereigns of the universe, including those he'd met once before, the Master of the Galaxy was the one he had the most favorable impression of. He was forthright and honest. He didn't feel any of the scheming of the others around him. The Master of the Galaxy always said, "You and I are brothers. Why do I have to fuss over so much?" He treated everyone sincerely and trustingly. It was just like how if he poured his heart out to others, the response he got would be the same. I told you that personality would only harm you. You just don't believe me. Tianhai let out a long sigh. At that moment, a few graceful women approached the palace. Both their looks and figures were of the highest quality. If they were on the streets, they'd definitely turn their heads. Unfortunately, Tianhai didn't even spare them a glance. They were all Tianhai's wives and concubines. The union between them was just as Tianhai had said, a union of interest. Tianhai, I'm going to the Virtual World Corporation. Before the women could finish speaking, Tianhai spoke up. Agio, prepare a spaceship and notify the Energy Management Department to clear the dark space. I need it urgently. Understood. With that, Tianhai and Agio left in front of the women. The women's lips twitched, but in the end, they didn't say a single word to persuade them to stay. In truth, they were in pain too. They were all victims of their family clans. Is what you said true? The nine-faced overlord stood in Wen Li's palace at the headquarters of the Virtual World Corporation and reported to Wen Li. Yes. The nine-faced overlord nodded. That's what the Heavenly Bee Duke, the Falcon Duke, and the other titled experts of the Virtual World Corporation said when they reported to me. That kid really is lucky. Wen Li smiled and nodded in satisfaction. Not only did he get to know the Ling Feng, he's also on good terms with the Saint Realm Sovereigns. You just said that the Saint Realm Sovereigns didn't give us or the Universe Union Bank any face in order to protect Yi Zichen. That's right. The nine-faced overlord nodded. It seems like the Sacred Region owes Yi Zichen a huge favor. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this. Wen Li frowned and rubbed her chin with her fingers. There's been some trouble in the Sanctuary Venerable's galaxy recently, right? Yes, the nine-faced overlord said. Based on the intelligence we've received, the Saint-level sovereign stellar system is currently engaged in a war with a neighboring Class 3 stellar system. Among them, the 100 Beauties country master died while he was traveling through space. The cause of his death is unknown. A third-grade galaxy dares to provoke a sanctuary. Wen Li laughed. Regardless of whether it was a planet, a galaxy, or the universe, they all had their corresponding classifications. The higher the rank, the higher the status of the planet, galaxy, or universe in the entire human universe. A Class 3 galaxy was actually a relatively ordinary galaxy. If there were more than 10 universe-level fighters in the galaxy, or more than 1,000 star system level fighters, they could go to the Energy Management Office to be certified and obtain the rank 3 star system title. A planet was rated at 1/10 the size of a galaxy. The scale of the universe was 100 times that of a galaxy. This type of star system was actually considered to be in the lower middle reaches of the universe. Not to mention invading other star systems, it would already be good if they were not invaded, much less a star system with a Saint Realm Venerable. Even though the sanctuary didn't belong to any side. But he had a country master, 3 emperors, and 16 dukes under his command. The stellar system was a Class 9. A Class 3 challenging a Class 9 was like striking a rock with an egg. Wait, you just said the 100 Beauties country master died. Wen Li couldn't help but frown and raise her voice a little. She didn't know about this news at all. How could I not know about the death of a country master? Why didn't this news appear here before? We just found out not too long ago. The nine-faced overlord said, after the death of the 100 Beauties country master, the news was sealed. The upper echelons of the human race seemed to be purposely suppressing this news. Tell me all the news about the sanctuary. Wen Li frowned. She was already more concerned about the sanctuary situation. A whole hour passed. The nine-faced overlord told Wen Li everything from the invasion of the sacred galaxy, to the death of the 100 Beauties country master, to the sacred galaxy establishing a divine domain in the second world. From the beginning to the end, Wen Li's frown never relaxed. For such a stubborn guy like the sanctuary to change the name of the Union to the God domain in the second universe, Tianhai, how many years has it been since I heard him call himself that? How ruthless they really are. The news given by the nine-faced overlord was naturally the one who investigated this matter in depth. Even though the information didn't directly state it, Wen Li was actually well aware of it. The Supremes Association didn't do any investigation? Wen Li asked. According to our information, that's the case. The nine-faced overlord answered truthfully. Boom! In a split second, Wen Li smashed the crystal table in front of her. What a great ability. Since when did he become so powerful that even the Supremes Association doesn't dare to investigate him? Inhe, look at your good subordinate. Just because the sanctuary is on good terms with you, he's already reaching out to the sanctuary? Who knows what he's going to do next? Wen Li clenched her fists tightly, her eyes turning red. Red pupils. The nine-faced overlord knew that Wen Li was very angry now. Has the sanctuary asked for help from the Virtual World Corporation? No. The nine-faced overlord shook his head. Until now, We haven't received any help from the sanctuary venerable. Sister, should we know? Wenli shook her head. The sanctuary is a stubborn person. If he doesn't take the initiative to ask us for help, we shouldn't bother. If his galaxy is destroyed, we shouldn't bother either. Wenli said he doesn't trust the Virtual World Corporation now. Maybe in his heart, we're all accomplices with Cold Moon. Sister, the nine-faced overlord glared. Wenli raised her eyebrows. What? I can't mention him. Don't say that this is the Virtual World Corporation, my old nest. Even if I go to the Cold Moon Galaxy, I can point at Cold Moon's nose and say that he's a dog. What would he do to me? I'm not Inhi. If he doesn't smile in front of me for a second, I'll slap the headquarters of the corporation on his face. Sister, the nine-faced overlord didn't know what to say. Right at this moment, Wenli seemed to be angry. Little Nine, here, go. We'll buy all the galaxies around the Cold Moon Galaxy. Cold Moon, that little bastard. He's going to make a move on me sooner or later. Buy them in advance and prepare in advance. That way, I won't have to buy all the bases. Chapter 2277. Sister, are you serious? In Wenli's palace, Nine-Faced Overlord was completely convinced by Wenli's forward thinking. Even if the Holy Domain was attacked, Wenli actually thought of the future war between the Virtual World Corporation and Sanyu Galaxy. Virtual World Corporation. Sister, we are the Virtual World Corporation. As long as Sanyu Galaxy wants to survive in the human race, they wouldn't dare to attack you. Furthermore, the Universe Union Bank and the Virtual World Corporation were on the same side. If Sanyu Galaxy really dared to attack the Virtual World Corporation, then the Universe Union Bank would support them unconditionally, provoking the two giants. Not just Sanyu Galaxy, even the Supremes Association wouldn't dare to do that. Nine-Faced Overlord facepalmed. Her sister was good at everything, just that she was too stubborn at times. Why not? Wenli was serious. She didn't think that she was just doing whatever she wanted. The decision she made now was completely in line with the future of the universe. To others, the Virtual World Corporation was huge. Anyone with a brain wouldn't provoke them. Then, where was the Milky Way Galaxy? One had to know that the Milky Way Galaxy was once the strongest existence in the human universe. The power of the Milky Way Galaxy, it wasn't an exaggeration. It was enough to change the human universe. What was the result? Destroyed. The galaxy collapsed. The Milky Way race died in battle. The survivors were all wanted. The universe wanted order was revoked a few days ago. Couldn't the Virtual World Corporation become the second Milky Way Galaxy? Awareness of danger. Nine-Faced Overlord didn't have it, but as the leader, she had to consider it. Everything had to be prepared in advance. This way, when things happened, she wouldn't be flustered. But sister, Sanyu Galaxy is a Milky Way Galaxy. The Milky Way Galaxy is now a restricted area. No buying or selling. No troops are allowed. Nine-Faced Overlord smiled bitterly. What? Wenli was stunned. It was hard to imagine that the leader of the Virtual World Corporation, one of the highest beings of the human race, one of the voting members of the octagonal table, would reveal such a cute expression. Sanyu Galaxy is next to the Milky Way Galaxy. Wenli was a frequent visitor to the Milky Way Galaxy. When the Milky Way Galaxy was still around, she would go there whenever she had nothing to do. Sometimes she would stay for hundreds, thousands of years. She had never noticed that Sanyu Galaxy was next to the Milky Way Galaxy. Yes, the Nine-Faced Overlord smiled bitterly. In his heart, however, he muttered, "Of course you don't know." Every time he returned to the Milky Way Galaxy, he would arrive before he even reached his destination. It was not rare for him to waste expensive resources. He would jump into the dark universe and head straight for the main star of the Milky Way Galaxy. After going there, he stuck close to the master of the galaxy. How could he still care about the Blue Moon Galaxy? So annoying. Wenli frowned. The Milky Way is connected to the Sanyu Galaxy. It can't be the Milky Way in all four directions. If so, the Sanyu Galaxy will become the main galaxy of the Milky Way. The current Sanyu Galaxy belongs to the Sanyu Universe country. The Sanyu Galaxy has long bought the entire universe. The Nine-Faced Overlord spoke. Is that so? He's pretty fast. Wenli squinted. Since that's the case, let's buy all the universe countries around Sanyan Universe Country. Are you sure? The nine-faced hegemon asked. Close to the universe countries, it wasn't just the north, south, east, and west universe countries. The locations of the universe countries were crisscrossed, and any universe country close to it would have at least 7 to 8 universe countries. Sangyu Universe Country had over 40 neighboring universe countries. In order to let Wenli understand the situation, the nine-faced hegemon explained the situation. It's just 46 universe countries, buy them all. Wenli waved her hand, her aura soaring. Buy them all for me. After buying them all, start deploying the Virtual World Corporation's forces there. Transform all the galaxies into armed galaxies. I want the best battle equipment, the most complete battle system. Sister, this will cost a huge amount of money. The nine-faced hegemon pursed his lips. My Virtual World Corporation doesn't lack money. Wenli spoke. Just do as I say. We have to buy all the surrounding universe countries. If anyone doesn't sell, tell them to come find me in the palace. Yes, the nine-faced hegemon smiled bitterly and nodded. Wenli waved her hand, indicating for the nine-faced hegemon to start preparing. They slowly left the palace. The nine-faced hegemon didn't waste any time, immediately sending people to prepare the battleships. You're not doing this on a whim, Sister Wenli. At this time, a young lady walked out from behind Wenli's palace. This young lady was Shea. Call me teacher. Wenli creased her eyebrows. Teacher. Shea frowned and spoke unwillingly. Only then did Wenli nod satisfactorily. You think I'm doing this on a whim? I'm not sure. My brother-in-law always says that you can't use the normal way of thinking to look at things. Shea said. It's on purpose, isn't it? Wenli tilted her head. Let me tell you again, if I hadn't been in closed-door training for a period of time, there's no way your sister would be involved. Oh, Shea couldn't be bothered to argue. It's not on a whim. I really want to try it out with Sangyu. Wenli sat on a chair, gazing at the pure white sky outside. Others might not know, but you and I both understand Sinua Planet very well. They've been developing too quickly during this period of time. And Sangyu, he actually became an ultimate being. This is something I'm very concerned about. Concerned about what? Shea didn't understand. That's none of your business. Wenli patted Shea's little head. What you need to do is properly absorb the inheritance I've found for you. This inheritance is very compatible with you. It's very suitable for you. You only have the right to participate in this competition after you become a supremacy or above. Supremacy, huh? Shea let out a long sigh. As long as you are serious, it will be very fast. What's your relationship with Yi Zichen? You're actually willing to go to the Dark Universe and come back to find me for him. You can't be with him. You're thinking too much. Shea twitched her mouth. He's the one chosen by the Master of the Milky Way. Big sis, you know that as well, right? Of course. Otherwise, why would I pay so much attention to him? Wenli nodded. She left all 5 elemental spirits to him. Milky Way really is too nice to him. In the following months, the human universe countries underwent a tremendous change. The 39 universe countries around the Sangyu galaxy officially joined the Virtual World Corporation. Actually, 3 of the 7 universe countries were subordinate to the Virtual World Corporation. Nobody knew what the Virtual World Corporation was trying to do. All of a sudden, the human race began to discuss amongst themselves. Quite a few people wondered what the Virtual World Corporation was planning. Even the higher-ups of the human race were confused. Little did they know, all of this was on a whim. Chapter 2278. The Virtual World Corporation is really rich. 40-plus universe countries. How much universe dollars would that require? No, this number is not something that can be measured by universe dollars. He's really too rich. Little Fatty Bart sat on the sofa. At this time, he was watching the program Major Cosmic Events. If one had to talk about the biggest event in the universe in recent times, it would have to be the Virtual World Corporation's big move to purchase a cosmic nation. Almost every issue, universe events would mention it. From Bart's point of view, it would be better to just start a program from the Virtual World Group. Perhaps the number of viewers would be even higher. What did I just hear? There's actually someone who can make our Steel family's second young master feel that they're rich. Tell me, who's so arrogant? The second floor of the castle. Yi Zichen walked out with Beiyu's help. At this time, more than 3 months had passed since the second universe purge plan. He forcefully condensed the third heaven plundered style. The burden on Yi Zichen was far greater than his body could bear. In the following few months, Yi Zichen stayed in recovery, while Beiyu and Bei-yin took care of him 24/7. Because of this, Bard even had a small conflict with Yi Zichen, her Bei-yin goddess. Fortunately, Ba-da was a reasonable person. He knew that Yi Zichen's situation was rather bad, so he reluctantly let Bei-yin take care of him. Who else could it be? The Virtual World Corporation. Bard tilted his head and pointed at the Universe player with his lips. The Universe player was still talking about the Virtual World Group and the news of them buying a Universe nation. Even Yi Zichen, who didn't pay much attention to these things, understood most of it. Universe country, Yi Z, Universe country. Bud clenched his fists. Our Steel family's entire wealth can't even buy half of it. The Virtual World Group directly bought over 40 universe countries. Compared to them, I'm not even a family descendant. Huh? Yi Zichen smiled but didn't reply. This was obvious. The Virtual World Corporation was, after all, one of the 8 giants. Naturally, it had a strong foundation. Even Yi Zichen was rather surprised. The Virtual World Corporation had actually bought over 40 universe countries. In the broadcast of major cosmic events, he seemed to have even mentioned the Virtual World Corporation. They were currently moving troops towards these universe countries. Good. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. It was as if they were preparing for war. As for who he was going to fight, major cosmic events did not dare to speculate on its own. This kind of giant-level action, how could a small universe variety program like theirs dare to comment? As they spoke, the program ended. Bard stretched lazily and summoned his optical computer. I'm going to Universe 2. Are you coming? Don't talk nonsense. Yi Zichen rolled his eyes mercilessly. This guy really knows how to rub it in. Ah, I forgot. Ha! With a silly smile, Bard's consciousness entered the virtual network. Yi Zichen didn't go. In other words, all the human survivors who had experienced that purge never entered the second universe again. In any case, it was a disaster. It could even be called a catastrophe. Those who had survived all had lingering fears when they mentioned the second universe, and the fear in their hearts had reached an extreme point. There were also quite a number of people. The second universe had become a taboo topic for them. Even though the Virtual World Corporation had already stated clearly that the second universe was a real world. Once they entered the second universe, they would face the danger of death. As long as the Virtual World Corporation defended themselves properly, they would not have to bear any responsibility for the disaster of the purge. Finally, in the end, the Virtual World Corporation still compensated everyone. Even more so, from then on, the village Yi Zichen was started to become sparse. Those who logged into the game were all solo players. They did not personally experience the disaster, so they were unable to understand the situation. Even though countless people complained about their terrible state on the forums, there were only a few who were truly convinced and stopped playing the game. When the Virtual World Corporation announced the truth about the second universe, that had already dissuaded a large number of humans. Those who still chose to enter the second universe after that were prepared for the worst. Or they might have been humans who wanted to get some interest from the second universe. Yi Zichen's situation was slightly better. He was not defeated by the purge, but he did not log into the second universe again. Yes, this chapter is not finished. Please continue. He was still worried. He thought about a lot after waking up, and the thing he thought about the most was whether he should continue making such a dangerous decision. Right now, he was studying in school step by step, slowly increase his strength. Taking the safest path wasn't too bad of choice. His body was in terrible shape after returning from the second universe, but his strength had increased noticeably. He was already at the 6th level of the star level. That was the problem he was facing. If he stopped now, the milk powder of the elemental fairies would become a huge problem. Without a stable supply of funds from the equipment shops, he would not be able to replenish the supply of elemental fairies. Also, He hadn't seen the elemental phoenix for a long time. Bifong had entrusted her to him. If he didn't log into the game, he would be letting her down. But he really didn't want to go through that again. If it weren't for his luck, he might have died in the second universe and would never be able to see Su Yin and the others again. Yi Zichen had always wondered, should he just go back like this? From the looks of the current situation, he could totally sit in the Milky Way. Now that he was in the universe, he actually hadn't learned any useful knowledge. Let's wait a bit longer, he let out a deep sigh, then pushed the thought to the back of his mind. Bifong was still in the middle of traveling through the universe. Even if he really wanted to return to Earth, he had to at least wait until she came to see him. Otherwise, if Bifong came and he left in the next few months, who knew whether or not she would go to the Milky Way in anger to cause trouble for him? Looking at the time, Bifong should be here soon enough. Thump, thump, thump. Hurried footsteps suddenly sounded out from outside. Then, Yi Zichen saw Bei Yin hurrying in with two slaves. Yi Zichen had some impression of one of them. They seemed to be the ones sent to Earth. Mr. Yi. Bei Yin bit her lips, her eyes filled with self-blame. Yi Zichen couldn't help but narrow his eyes when he saw her expression. What is it? Your friend ran into some trouble. What? My friend? Who? Into chapter 2279. Bei Yin pursed her lips. He could tell that she was very tense right now. However, Yi Zichen felt rather confused. He didn't have any friends on Blue River Planet. The only person she had a good relationship with, Bud, was sitting on the sofa in the living room. All of a sudden, Yi Zichen frowned as he looked at the slaves. Could it be from the Milky Way? Bring me there. Yi Zichen didn't pursue the matter, nor did he have the time. Yi Zichen's heart raced along the way. When he left Earth, he told them not to leave Earth unless they had transcended. If someone followed the slaves back, it meant that someone had succeeded. Who could it be? In terms of strength, the goddess of war, Tian Tian, was actually the closest to transcending. When Yi Zichen left, she was only a step away. After that was the great sage, Yang Jian, Mr. Yi. Along the way, Bei Yin's expression was filled with self-blame. Several months ago, Yi Zichen's slaves had led the people of the Milky Way to the castle. At that time, Yi Zichen had just returned from the second universe with heavy injuries. Bei Yin used a few reasons to dodge the question and didn't let the visitors stay in the castle. Actually, she did it out of consideration for Yi Zichen's safety, since she didn't know Yi Zichen's friends. Before Yi Zichen woke up, no one could confirm the newcomer's identity. When Yi Zichen woke up, she and Bei Yu had been taking care of him, while Bei Yin had also forgotten about Yi Zichen's friend. Until recently, a slave living elsewhere suddenly found her and told her that Yi Zichen's friend was in trouble. Only then did she remember the matter and hurried to the castle to report it to Yi Zichen. All right, I don't blame you. Yi Zichen knew what Bei Yin was blaming herself for, but he also understood her. With her current identity and position, there were too many things that she had to deal with. Many times, when she was busy, she would forget some things that she didn't think were important. Furthermore, what she did wasn't wrong. If this self-proclaimed old friend of Yi Zichen's wasn't actually Yi Zichen's old friend and had harmed Yi Zichen while Yi Zichen was heavily injured, how should he deal with it? Of course, this possibility was very small, but it was not impossible. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. What's more, Yi Zichen wasn't in the mood to argue with Bei Yin. All he wanted to do was hurry over. He didn't want anything to happen to his friend. Those guys better pray they don't do anything out of line. If the people from the Milky Way were to lose even a single strand of hair, no matter who was behind them, Yi Zichen absolutely wouldn't let them off. Perhaps his current strength was too low. But there would come a day when he could turn things around. Blue River Planet. The planet was divided into 17 districts. The number of the district represented the location of the district on the planet. The smaller the number, the closer it was to the center of the planet. Blue River Star's 9th district. This was actually the inner part of the planet, and the people who lived here belonged to the upper middle class of the entire planet. In the middle of a street in the 9th district, the black-robed young man stared at the middle-aged man in front of him with his pitch-black eyes. Actually, the two of them didn't have any grudges. If they were to talk about the beginning of the feud, it was this young man who ruined the middle-aged man's plans. Brat, It's none of your business. You better F***CK off. The middle-aged man was a star-level expert. In Blue River Star, a star-level expert was already considered a decent existence. One must know that on this life planet, there were less than 50 star-level experts. As for universe levels, there were only 3 of them. The young man in front of him was a domain level 1 expert. With the middle-aged man's strength, he could smash the young man into smithereens with one slap. However, a domain-level expert had the status of a universe citizen. If he killed him within the planet, he would be pursued by the law enforcers. Therefore, even though the difference in strength between them was obvious, he couldn't kill the young man. She doesn't want to go with you. Why did you force her? The young man frowned. Beside him was a cute and sweet-looking cat race girl. The girl had a pair of furry ears and a cute tail. It could be seen from her trembling ears that she was very afraid. And you guys, isn't this girl a staff member of your arena? Aren't you going to do anything about it? The young man turned around and looked at the people not far away. This warrior, she isn't a universe citizen, someone explained. Universe citizen? The black-robed youth squinted his eyes. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. He couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. She had been on Blue River Planet for 3 months. In the past 3 months, this planet had given him a certain feeling. Coldness. This coldness was 10 times, 100 times stronger than the coldness he felt before. It wasn't even on the same level. He had once seen it with his own eyes in a tavern. Just because a young master who seemed to be more capable took a fancy to a girl, and because the girl didn't comply, the young master was killed on the spot. No one cared about the girl's cries for help. Until she died, no one even looked at her. By the time he went over, the girl was already dead. After that, he found out that the girl wasn't a universe citizen. In this universe, those who hadn't become domain-level humans, especially those vassal races with no status, their lives were less than livestock. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. No one had ever felt that this was wrong, as though everyone here had silently accepted this fact. Just now, he met this cat race girl. During this period of time, he had been immersed in the arena. The cat race girl was the receptionist here, and after a while, they got to know each other. Just as he was about to leave, the man in front of him seemed to want to force the cat race girl to do something. He didn't need to think to know that it was a dirty act. The youth naturally couldn't just sit back and do nothing, which led to the scene just now. However, the person in charge of the arena saying that she wasn't a universe citizen instantly triggered the youth's nerves. He thought of the Milky Way galaxy. He thought of the billions of people in the Milky Way galaxy who hadn't become domain level. According to the words of the people here, didn't that mean that the entire Milky Way galaxy was an animal waiting to be slaughtered? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Kid, you heard that. She isn't a universe citizen. You should be glad that you've entered the threshold of a universe citizen. Otherwise, do you think I, a star level, would waste my breath on you? The middle-aged man said with disdain. Who set this? The youth frowned. I say, who set the rule that those who haven't reached domain level aren't universe citizens? Who gave you the right to bully and humiliate those who aren't universe citizens? The youth's eyes turned red. He looked up at the middle-aged man who was a head taller than him. Tell me, who is it? End of this chapter. Chapter 2280. Kid, for some reason, the middle-aged man felt a tinge of fear from the young man in front of him. After all, he was a star level. He had a high status in the Blue River planet. This young man was just a domain level, yet he was scared by such an ant. Who do you think you're talking to? In an instant, the middle-aged man was furious. This anger was mixed with the young man's disrespect towards him, as well as the unexplainable fear in his heart. He subconsciously wanted to release his power to calm himself down. The power of a star level was unleashed. The surrounding houses and the ground started to crack. A strong pressure pressed down on the young man, causing his feet to sink deep into the ground. People nowadays are getting more and more arrogant. You're just a star level, yet you dare to order a star level senior around. Who taught you all this? Didn't the elders in your family teach you to respect your seniors? Dong. The young man standing in front suddenly felt his chest sink. The huge impact sent him flying backward, and his back slammed into the wall of the building behind him. The blood in his chest churned. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The ground in front of him was dyed red. Cough, cough. The young man clutched his chest and slowly walked out of the dust. From the middle-aged man's attack, just now, the young man had already clearly felt the difference in power between them. Only now did he understand. What kind of world did he come to? Here, he was no longer standing at the top of the world. His existence was like an ant that could be crushed by anyone. He looked toward the Cat Clan girl. The girl's eyes showed some worry when a young man was injured. However, she didn't dare to move. She just bit her lips in fear. The young man sneered and slowly raised his head to look at the middle-aged man. When he noticed the young man's expression, the middle-aged man's eyes instantly became even more furious. What kind of look is that? He saw that the young man was looking at him without any fear. His eyes were even flashing with a fierce light. This kind of look was a great insult to the middle-aged man. Star level versus domain level. This chapter is not finished. Please continue. Not only did the domain level not yield, he even dared to look at him like that. You're courting death. In anger, the star-level middle-aged man suddenly mobilized the power of the universe. Swoosh! At this moment, a golden sword suddenly descended from the void. This sudden scene caused everyone to raise their heads involuntarily. They saw a pale-faced young man land on the ground. There were several people following behind him. Without exception, all of them had surging auras. Star state. All of them are at the star level. Heavens, am I seeing things? There are actually experts from other galaxies here. In the Blue River Star, the appearance of a nebula level was enough to cause chaos. Experts of this level usually lived in the central area and rarely came to the 9th district. The young man could not help but raise his head, and his eyes were filled with wild joy. Iyun. The person who'd suddenly appeared was none other than Yi Zichen. The black-robed youth was the Milky Way's Emperor Hades, Yi Zichen's best friend, Su Iyun. They hugged each other tightly. Yi Zichen really didn't expect that the person who came to Blue River Planet would be Su Iyun. Although he was also very strong, his strength was actually not at the peak of the group at that time. You're injured? When Su Iyun saw Yi Zichen's pale face, a hint of worry flashed through his eyes. Ha, it's no big deal. Yi Zichen grinned, then glanced at the blood at the corner of Su Iyun's mouth. How did you get injured? Did he do it? Yi Zichen turned to look at the middle-aged man. When he saw Yi Zichen's gaze, the man subconsciously gulped. He was a star state expert, and his strength wasn't bad. However, in the face of several star state experts, as well as a squad of nebula-level experts, his meager strength really didn't amount to much. What's more, how could someone with such strength be an ordinary person? No, the middle-aged man muttered to himself. What was there to be afraid of? No matter what, he was a star state expert. He had the rights of a citizen in the universe. Even a universe expert couldn't kill him on a human life planet. You injure my friend. This chapter isn't over. Please continue. Yi Zichen looked at the middle-aged man's face, his gaze cold and sinister. Young master. The middle-aged man subconsciously thought that Yi Zichen was the young master of a certain family, so he addressed him like that. Please allow me to explain myself. Before Yi Zichen could reply, the middle-aged man spoke up. Actually, I don't have any grudges with your friend. That cat girl is someone I fancied. I originally wanted to take her away, but your friend came to cause trouble for me. You can also ask the surrounding people. I've already tolerated your friend for a long time, but he's only gotten worse. In the universe, the strong are respected. Your friend is only at the domain level. He talked back to me multiple times, but I didn't kill him. I merely punished him slightly. This is to protect the dignity of the strong. It's only natural. Cat girl? Yi Zichen subconsciously looked towards the cat girl. There was no domain level. The girl also sneaked a peek at Yi Zichen with eyes filled with anticipation, as if she was hoping for Yi Zichen to save her. This damned universe citizenship law, Yi Zichen couldn't help but sigh. Yi Zichen couldn't help but let out a long sigh in his heart. Those who aren't at the domain level cannot enjoy the protection of a universe citizen law. It's fine if it's some family heirs, since they have their families to take care of them. But for a subsidiary race of the human race, without any family backing them or any experts to protect them, it was truly difficult for them to survive in the universe. Bei was like that before. If it wasn't for Yi Zichen, who knows what her future would have been like? Yi Zichen looked away from the cat girl. Well said. Yi Zichen nodded with a smile. You're right. The strong are respected in the universe. The star-level middle-aged man revealed a look of joy. It seems like this young master is rather reasonable. He wanted to strike while the iron was hot and say a few more words, but suddenly, the middle-aged man was ruthlessly slapped in the face. That slap directly knocked his teeth to the ground, and dark red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Young master, what are you doing? The middle-aged man covered his face. You hit my friend to protect the dignity of the strong. Yi Zichen looked at the middle-aged man's slightly swollen face. Then may I ask, am I stronger than you? You are stronger than me. The middle-aged man looked down. Then I am also protecting the dignity of the strong. Is there a problem with that? You said it yourself, didn't you? End of the chapter. Chapter 2281. Everyone watched this scene in silence. An eye for an eye. That was all Yi Zichen could do. He didn't look for those ridiculous excuses. All excuses were meaningless in the face of strength. Just one sentence. I'm stronger than you, so I'll bully you. In this universe, it couldn't be said to be absolute, but at least most of it was so. Yi Zichen actually quite liked it. Simple. Rough. There is no need for so many taboos. Strength spoke for itself. Yes. The middle-aged man lowered his head. Right now, he didn't even have the desire to resist, let alone feel angry. Just a moment ago, he felt at least a dozen auras of people stronger than him locking onto him. If he had dared to move just now, forget about the others. That cosmic system state would instantly suppress him. This cat girl, do you still want her? Yi Zichen pointed at the cat girl. Young master, your friend has taken a fancy to someone. How would I dare? Then why are you still here? The middle-aged man hurriedly left. Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh, but his heart grew even heavier as he silently clenched his fists. Fortunately, it was a star level this time. His subordinates and slaves would be able to suppress him. If it was the universe level this time, he might not do anything to Yi Zichen and Su Yun, but the cat girl wouldn't be so lucky. Thank you, young master. The cat girl bit her lip and walked over, her eyes filled with gratitude. Yi Zichen subconsciously thought of Beiyu when he saw her. She was the same at that time. There's no need to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank this brother of mine. If it weren't for him, you'd already have been taken away by that person, and I wouldn't have had to show up. Thank you, Brother Su. The cat girl pursed her lips. Su Yun forced a smile and said nothing. What he was thinking about now was actually very simple. If he had not come, how would they have ended up? Everyone returned to the castle. The cat girl naturally came back with them. Yi Zichen didn't know what she could do, so he let Bei-in make the arrangements, while he and Su Yun sat on the rattan chairs outside the castle. If this chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Master! At that moment, two slaves walked into the castle. They were the ones who had followed Bei-in to inform Yi Zichen that Su Yun was in trouble. What is it? Asked Yi Zichen. Master, please blame me. One of the slaves lowered his head towards Yi Zichen. It is our fault for not protecting your friend properly. Ouch. You guys are here for this. Yi Zichen nodded, then his expression instantly turned cold. I thought you wouldn't come looking for me. Master, please punish me. The slave lowered his head. Forget it. Suddenly, Yi Zichen let out a long sigh. Bane already explained it to me. You people on the slave planet don't have cosmic citizenship, so you can't attack people with legal cosmic citizenship. I understand. Master. The slave was moved, but Yi Zichen's expression darkened. Just this once. I hope this will only happen once. If it happens again, at least one of you must stay behind to protect my friend and not let him get hurt. Leave the other problems to me. Yes. All right, you guys have worked hard. You can go now. Yi Zichen's expression turned gentle. Also, get Bei-in to take you to register your cosmic citizenship. I didn't know that this sort of constitution existed before, but since I do, I'll grant you the equal rights of being a cosmic citizen. Master, the two slaves knelt on the ground. Yi Zichen waved his hand with a smile. and the two slaves left after kowtowing. Only then did Yi Zichen let out a long sigh. Iyun, there's something I need to remind you of. Su Iyun looked up. Yi Zichen pursed his lips. If you see the cat girl in the future, don't get involved unless it's absolutely necessary. Yi Zi. Su Iyun looked up in surprise. He didn't expect Yi Zichen to say something like that. It's not that I've changed or that I'm cold. It's just that we can't do anything about it. Yi Zichen rubbed his head. Do you know how many people like that there are in the entire universe? It might be 100 million times more than all the humans in the Milky Way. This sort of thing can be seen everywhere in the universe, not to mention Blue River Planet. I'll just say it like this just now. There might have been. This chapter isn't over. Please continue. Something like that happened 100 million times. How are we supposed to do anything about it? To put it bluntly, we're all like clay bodhisattvas crossing a river. We can't even protect ourselves. Take what happened just now, for example. If it was a universe level, then even I wouldn't be able to do anything about it, Yi Zichen said calmly. It wasn't that he'd become cold. It was just that he'd seen too much. He'd realized reality. They didn't have the ability to change the world, nor did they have the power to protect themselves. Mind other people's business. But that's only if you have the ability to mind other people's business. If this time he met a universe level or a petty person and they investigated the Milky Way galaxy, what would he do? The premise of humanity's benevolence was to ensure that their status wouldn't be shaken. They don't have the ability. Yi, will our Milky Way galaxy become a slave planet? Su Iyun's eyes suddenly revealed a look of pain. His eyes turned bloodshot as he looked at the two leaving slaves with a conflicted expression. They were clearly humans. Just because Yi Zichen granted them the rights of universe citizens, their eyes were filled with gratitude. You want to save the cat girl because of this? Yi Zichen asked. Among the people in the Milky Way, Su Iyun could be said to be the calmest and least impulsive person. At first, Yi Zichen had thought that Su Iyun had his eyes on the cat girl, but after thinking about it, he felt that it didn't make sense. Until he saw Su Iyun's bloodshot eyes and pained expression, Yi Zichen knew. Su Iyun had the same thought as him. The Milky Way, will it become a slave planet in the future? Will the people of the Milky Way be bullied like the cat girl in the future? Not at first, but then. Su Iyun let out a long sigh and didn't continue. At first, he simply wanted to help when he saw someone he knew being bullied. But then, when the middle-aged man mentioned that she wasn't a universe citizen, he couldn't control his emotions anymore. This universe is so cold. After a long while, Su Iyun let out a deep sigh. Yeah, it is, Yi Zichen nodded. But don't worry, our Milky Way galaxy definitely won't become a slave planet, and the people of the Milky Way galaxy definitely won't become like them in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 2282. Based on the Milky Way galaxy's situation. The current Milky Way galaxy was a native star system of the human race. The star system didn't have a single decision-maker. The star system was sealed. It didn't trade with the outside world. The star system didn't belong to any cosmic country and didn't enjoy the security of cosmic country. This star system belonged to the slave masters. Or perhaps the other powerhouses liked it the most. The current Milky Way galaxy was like a mountain of gold that hadn't been excavated. Fortunately, this mountain of gold was buried very deep and hadn't been developed by humans yet. Unfortunately, it could be discovered at any time, and the person who discovered it definitely wouldn't give up on it. Easy. Su Iyun wanted to say something, but then stopped. To be honest, before he came to the universe, he was filled with confidence. He wanted to join hands with Yi Zichen and conquer a place of their own in the vast universe. Before he came, he was so confident. When he really came to this world that was cold to the bone, the raging fire in his heart was about to be extinguished. He never would have guessed they who once stood at the peak of the Milky Way galaxy were actually at the bottom of the universe. The only fortunate thing was they could still be considered cosmic citizens. If they weren't cosmic citizens, then he would be like the cat girl. He wouldn't even have the right to live on equal terms on this life planet. Su Iyun couldn't help but think of Su Yan, his little sister. No matter what, he couldn't let that happen. That's right. The Milky Way galaxy won't become a slave planet. Su Iyun's previous dispiritedness was swept away. He clenched his fists tightly, his eyes burning with passion. What was his purpose in coming here? Wasn't it to become a pioneer of the Milky Way galaxy and forge ahead in this part of the universe? It definitely won't. Yi Zichen nodded with a smile. Oh yeah, how's the situation in the Milky Way galaxy right now? Why didn't you guys reply to me when I sent you guys messages on the virtual network? That's what I was going to tell you. Su Ian sorted out his emotions and grinned. The thing you gave us can't be used at all. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Yi Zichen frowned. You also know that we are all very curious, not to mention the unknown universe. Not long after you left, the great sage, Yang Jian, and Xia Kiki started complaining that they wanted to see it. Even Su Luer is filled with curiosity. Even though she hasn't said anything, I can tell she's curious. Yi Zichen nodded. This was indeed something the great sage, Yang Jian, Kiki, and Luer would do. We discussed going up to take a look, but the result? Yi Zichen repeated. There's no internet to begin with. Su Iyun shrugged. After Elderlin arrived, he told us that our Milky Way galaxy wasn't covered by the Virtual World Corporation's network. The anonymous helmet you gave us can only be used in the area covered by the Virtual World Group's network. Yi Zichen was instantly stunned. Then he slapped his head hard. Wasn't that right? The reason why the entire universe could log into the virtual network was because of the network structure of the Virtual World Corporation. Milky Way. If there was a virtual world network, didn't that mean that the Milky Way galaxy had already been discovered by the Virtual World Group? If he hadn't discovered it, there wouldn't have been a virtual network. So you're saying I bought it for nothing? Yi Zichen smiled wryly. Not really. Su Iyun shook his head. There are some local documents in the anonymous helmet. We'll be able to gain some useful knowledge from reading them. That's good. Even so, Yi Zichen couldn't help but want to slap himself. Too careless. He was used to using the virtual network in the universe, so he subconsciously thought that he could use it in the Milky Way. How's the strength of our Milky Way now? I'm all right. Su Iyun rubbed his chin. When I left, the great sage and Yang Jian were already preparing to break through to transcendence, the domain of the universe. The strength of the other martial monarchs had also increased. I think it won't be long before our Milky Way galaxy will have a few domain-level masters. All right. Also, we have something to discuss. Su Iyun continued. We don't plan to send everyone who breaks through to the universe. Someone has to stay behind in the Milky Way. No one can be sure what the future holds. If someone discovers our galaxy, you did the right thing. Yi Zichen nodded. The Milky Way definitely was. This chapter isn't over. Please continue. Someone had to stay behind. Otherwise, if they left the Milky Way after transcendence, then the Milky Way wouldn't be able to resist at all if they encountered someone from the universe. Didn't I leave behind a few slaves? Their mission is to stay behind to guard the Milky Way and provide you with knowledge of the universe. Although they're slaves, they're not weak. I also sent a 6-stage star system expert. We know, Su Yun grinned. How else do you think I broke through? Actually, even before you transcended, I felt like I was just one step away from transcendence. But I couldn't take that one step. It was the people you sent. Their guidance made me see the light. The great sage and the others were the same. Yi Zichen was overjoyed. It seemed like everyone around him understood what he meant. They were also delighted that the people he sent could indeed be of help to the Milky Way. Also, the war goddess and several major powers of the god race have already unified all the galaxies with life in the Milky Way. The experts of the other races are now with them as well. Good. Yi Zichen really didn't expect the Milky Way to change so much in the year he was gone. The unification of galaxies. That was what Yi Zichen had been planning to do. Now that the Milky Way was weak, they could only band together. They couldn't afford any more internal conflicts. The former God King of Destruction, Yale, he had no idea how many planets with life in the Milky Way were destroyed by the worlds outside the Milky Way. It was a huge blow to the Milky Way as well. After the unification of the galaxies, the Milky Way had to start resting and increasing its overall strength. One galaxy, if they wanted to truly rise up it was useless to just rely on one person, even if their ruler was a sovereign. If the clansmen of the galaxy didn't even have a domain master, then the galaxy wouldn't have a high ranking, and people wouldn't look up to them in the outside world. At most, they would be slightly more polite to them out of respect for the sovereign. What's more, who would stick their galaxy on their face? At the end of the day, status and dignity had to be fought for. Experts were just protection. True recognition came from the hard work of everyone in the galaxy. But yeah, I have something else to tell you. It's about Earth. End of this chapter. Chapter 2283. Inside a small manor. The middle-aged man Yi Zichen slapped was sitting in a rocking chair. In front of him was a scantily clad catwoman. He liked catwomen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to take him back to his manor when he saw the catwoman. At that moment, the catwoman was helping him apply medicine. Yi Zichen was also in the star level. After returning from the second universe, he'd forcefully released his divine energy, which had affected his body. However, it was also a blessing in disguise, and his strength had increased significantly. At that moment, he was already in the 6th level of the star level. Yi Zichen's slap was very sudden, and the middle-aged man didn't even have time to use his universal energy to defend himself. The entire right side of his face was swollen. He was going to see a lord later. It was already too late to use universal energy to reduce the swelling, so he could only rely on medicine. The Catwoman was already very careful with her actions. However, she still accidentally touched the middle-aged man's wound. Ugh! The middle-aged man gasped, then frowned. The Catwoman hurriedly knelt on the ground, but the middle-aged man still slapped her. Trash! That slap sent the cat race woman flying. Then, the middle-aged man seemed to vent all of his anger towards Yi Zichen onto the Catwoman. A full half an hour passed. The middle-aged man twisted his neck, his eyes dark. Then, a few people ran over and dragged the Catwoman out. Damn it. Ugh. The middle-aged man couldn't help but gasp when he tore open his wound. He was a 7th-level star-level expert, yet he'd been beaten by a 6th-level star-level brat, and so badly at that. If it weren't for Yi Zichen and the others, there were even star-level experts present. How could he just swallow his anger like that? He was a tyrant in Blue River Planet's 9 districts. With his strength, he could easily live in a higher-level district. He enjoyed the feeling of being above others in a lower-level district. Who would have thought that someone like that would pop up? And that Catwoman, he'd had his eye on her for a long time. He was partial to Catwomen. Otherwise, the women in his manor wouldn't all be Catwomen. Actually, there was one more thing. There weren't any Catwomen who were too strong. At the very least, all the stray Catwomen in Blue River Planet were lowly fellows. This chapter isn't over. Please continue. Citizens of the universe. He did not need to feel any psychological burden when toying with these fellows. There was no need to worry about whether someone would come to take revenge or not. F***CK. The middle-aged man couldn't help but curse. Accompanied by the anger in his heart, he cursed out all the ugly words he knew. Perhaps this was the only way he could vent the anger in his heart. It was impossible for him to take revenge. The way he saw it, Yi Zichen was absolutely the direct descendant of some great family clan. Otherwise, there was no way he could have a Nebula-level bodyguard in the Star Realm. Moreover, the Cosmic System State Guard's level wasn't low. Why are you so angry? Is there anyone on the Blue River Star who dares to provoke you? Suddenly, laughter came from the entrance of the middle-aged man's small manor. The middle-aged man raised his head and saw 3 men walking in from his door. My lord, why are you here? The middle-aged man hurriedly ran up to greet him. The smile on his face was like a blooming chrysanthemum. The few of them glanced at him, then walked straight to the stone chairs in the manor and sat down. The middle-aged man silently followed behind them. My lord, didn't I tell you to just tell me where you're staying after you arrived? I'll just go and see you. How could I trouble you to come to my place? The 3 that came were clearly not of low status. Otherwise, the middle-aged man wouldn't have addressed them so politely. Among the 3, the one sitting in the middle had short hair, wore a sleeveless vest, and wore plain trousers. A skinny man with a pair of leather boots on his feet and a crimson dagger on his waist said with a smile, His face was red like a scar left by a scab. "No worries. Our parking spot is right over there. So we came directly." The middle-aged man nodded with a smile. The middle-aged man smiled and nodded. The thin man glanced at the ground. Not far away from him, there were bloodstains left behind by the cat race woman that hadn't been cleaned up. "Ha!" The middle-aged man hurriedly smiled coyly when he felt the man's gaze, then signaled the Manor's people to clean it up. "It seems like we came at the wrong time." "My lord, what are you saying?" The middle-aged man smiled. "It's just a small matter. You don't have to worry about it. What are you doing here on Blue River Planet? You didn't say anything in the virtual network. How about this? Since you've just arrived, I'll give you a welcome. I happen to know a shop that's filled with cat people that were just brought over from Poland. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. After so many years, your interests haven't changed at all." The man in the middle smiled and said, "We won't be enjoying those cat people. We came here with a mission." "Mission?" The middle-aged man didn't understand. "The mission the young master gave us." "Young master?" When the middle-aged man heard this, he was shocked. He knew what kind of person these people called young master was. That young master was a true heir of a large family. His father was also an important person in the virtual world company, not to mention the small, by now, galaxy. Even among the universe countries, his position was high. "What does this young master want you to do?" The middle-aged man instinctively wanted to ask, but quickly realized that he was asking too much and quickly shut his mouth. "My apologies, my lord. I spoke too much." "It's nothing." The man was still smiling as he shook his head and said, "Originally, we came to look for you this time to ask for a small favor." "Me?" The middle-aged man pointed at himself and stared. Very quickly, he was at a loss. To be able to work for this young master was a great opportunity. If he did well and received the young master's appreciation, even if he couldn't become the young master's trusted aide, with the young master's generosity, it would be easy for him to live a carefree life for thousands of years. "My lord, please tell me, as long as I, hacker, can do it, I won't hesitate." The middle-aged man thumped his chest loudly. "Blue River Planet is your home. If I wanted to find someone on Blue River Planet, it should be easy." The man said. No matter what, Blue River Planet was a place with billions of humans living. Finding someone was like finding a needle in a haystack. Feeling the man's expression change, the middle-aged man hurriedly nodded. "No problem." "Good." The man nodded satisfactorily. "I need you to find this person for me within 3 days. We were delayed on the way here, and the young master is already a little anxious." "My lord, don't you want me to see who that person is?" "It's him." The man took out a card that looked like a picture from his chest. The moment he saw the person on the card, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted, his palms thumping his chest. "Leave it to me. I promise you, I'll definitely find him within 3 days." End of this chapter. Chapter 2284. Text of the Red Packet Server Chapter 2279. Warlord level. Star level. The middle-aged man swore. "Someone really gave me a pillow when I was sleepy. What a cycle of reincarnation." It was fine if it was anyone else, but the middle-aged man didn't dare to agree so easily. The person in front of him. It was Ezichin, who had just slapped him and snatched the cat girl away from him. However, he wasn't too sure yet. Just what was the relationship between that young master and Ezichin? If they were friends, the middle-aged man felt a little apprehensive as he asked cautiously, Sire, can I ask, what is his relationship with young master?" "Why are you asking this?" The man frowned. Sire, to be honest, do you see the wound on my face? It was hit by this person." Haka gulped as his heart raced. "Oh." The man raised his eyebrows. The three people looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. "He hit you? When and where?" 2 hours ago, Haka replied. The location was outside the Blue River Planet branch of the District 9 Joint Dueling Arena. The moment Haka said that, everyone revealed a look of pity. If he had come a bit earlier, they might have been able to complete the mission. During this time, Haka paid attention to the three people's expressions. From their eyes, he didn't feel like he was in trouble. Now that I think about it, that guy doesn't seem to be friends with young master. With that thought, Haka felt a lot more at ease. How strong is he? What level of the universe? At that moment, the man on the left spoke up. Universe. Haka stuttered when he heard this. Could he be a warlord? The moment he said that, the three people frowned. Warlord? He was only in the 7th level of the star level. Universe level was something he could only look up to. These people actually said that Yi Zichen was of the universe level. And a warlord? Sire, this guy is only in the 6th level of the star level. Haka pointed at the image on the crystal card. Star level. All of a sudden, the three people were shocked. How? The three frowned in their hearts. The target could clearly control the fire element. To become a controller, one had to be at least a universe level. Are you sure it's this person? The man in the middle pointed at the image to confirm. It's definitely him. Haka nodded vigorously. Even if he turns into ashes, I'll still be able to recognize him. It's definitely this person. Since he's in the 6th level of the star body realm, would you be beaten up by him? You've been beaten, yet you're still throwing a tantrum here. Isn't your realm higher than his? The man asked. If he was alone, of course I wouldn't be afraid. It's just that he has many guards. What level? There are a few stellar states and a few stellar states. Only at the nebulous system. They looked at each other again and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Are you sure it's him? The man asked again. I'm sure. All right, then go find him. Once you've figured out where he lives, let us know. The man sitting in the middle said. You don't have to worry. This person is the person that young master wants to deal with. Once you find him, we will go over. It can be considered as revenge for you. Yes. Haka straightened his body. This is $30 million. The middle-aged man took out a card from his pocket. Consider it your commission. Thank you, sir. Haka swallowed his saliva and took the card. He knew that doing things for young master definitely wouldn't be for free. $30 million was enough for him to live happily on Blue River Star for thousands of years. Seeing Haka's expression, the people in the seats couldn't help but smile. To them, this amount of money was nothing. After this is done, we will give you another sum of money. This sum will definitely be much more than what you have now. You just have to find this person as soon as possible, and the benefits will definitely be yours. Seeing Haka holding onto the card, the man smiled and said, Then, sir, if it's possible, can I not take that money? Can you introduce me to young master? Haka asked carefully. You want to work for young master? The man asked. Yes. Haka nodded vigorously. The man said, Do you know how to play games? Half an hour later, the three people in the seats left Haka's manor. Haka, who stood at the entrance and bowed as they left, maintained this posture for several minutes before standing up. He held the crystal card in his left hand, while he held Yi Zichen's image in his right hand. His eyes revealed a cold smile. You really are courting death. How can you piss off that young master? Haka spat fiercely at Yi Zichen's image, then quickly wiped it clean with his sleeve and put it away. However, he didn't expect that the grudge between Yi Zichen and that young master actually started in a game. As expected of that young master, and in a game, grudges have to be solved in reality. When the other lords found out that Haka didn't play games, they all shook their heads towards him and acted like they couldn't help him even if they wanted to. This caused him to be a bit confused. Is a game that important? Why must he play games? Isn't it fine to just be a dog? Yi Zichen shrugged. Haka didn't think too much about it. Although it was a bit of a pity that he couldn't follow that young master, the lords all promised to give him a large sum of money after the matter was done. With that money, he could live happily in Blue River Planet for a long time. Haka touched the crystal card in his hand and revealed a joyful expression. Men, Haka shouted towards the manor. Not long later, several domain-level subordinates appeared in front of him. How's that cat girl? She dead, the subordinate replied. When we brought her out, she was already dead. Haka laughed coldly, but didn't take it to heart. So what if she's dead? I've already gotten sick of her. You guys know the cat girl that I fancied before, the one that works in the dueling arena, right? Yes. Go and check if she has any relatives in Blue River Planet or any relatives in the neighboring planets. After you find out, come back and tell me. I will only give you 1 day. Understood. Also this person. Haka took out Yi Zichen's image. Check this person as well. Find out where he lives. I can provide it to you. You should be in the core area. Here's 500,000 Banao dollars. Haka took out a pouch of money. This money will be used for your expenses. I also need to confirm the location of this person's residence within a day. Yes, my lord. The subordinates grabbed the money with trembling hands, while Haka squinted his eyes and sat on the chair. All right, go do what you need to do. With that, Haka touched his waist and left the manor. He already couldn't wait to find a few girls, especially one that he had his eyes on for a long time. It was just that the price was too high now that he had several tens of millions of Banao dollars. If he didn't go, he would feel sorry for himself. As for Yi Zichen and the cat girl, he didn't need to worry about them. He believed that his subordinates could handle them very well. TSK, just wait for your death. Haka shook his head with a smile, then stopped thinking about Yi Zichen and ran excitedly towards his sweet home. End of this chapter. Chapter 2285. Text of the Red Packet Server Chapter 2280. Evolution of the entire population at that moment. Yi Zichen had no idea that danger was heading his way. He stood in the courtyard of the castle and looked at Su Yun with a frown. Just now, he still hadn't completely digested what Su Yun had told him. See beasts attacking? Ferocious beasts attacking the city? Evolution of the entire population. Don't worry. Su Yun could tell that Yi Zichen was worried about Earth's situation when he saw his frown. It's just the evolution of animals and sea creatures. With Lu Urgia watching over Earth, what do you think they can do? I can't believe you talked about the apocalypse so casually. For them, all of this was acceptable. With Su Lu and the others around, Earth wouldn't suffer a devastating blow. But for the humans of Earth, this was a catastrophe. Do you dare think about it? The cat that once lay in your arms and licked your fingers suddenly evolved into an extremely aggressive beast. They who were used to living in the city, the world had suddenly become an era of danger. Su Yun was stunned. He looked into Yi Zichen's eyes and nodded. You're right. If one were to consider this problem from the perspective of ordinary people on Earth, it would indeed be a disaster. Su Yun couldn't help but reflect. He used to be a normal person on Earth, but due to a series of events, he became further and further away from the word normal. So much so that now, when he thought about the problem, he subconsciously stopped thinking about it as a normal person and looked at it from a macro perspective. Why did it suddenly become like this? Yi Zichen frowned. Old Man Lin said that it's because our Milky Way galaxy started to connect with the universe, and the cosmic energy flowed in. That's why it became like this, said Su Yun. He said, actually, all the galaxies in the universe are like this. It's just that the Milky Way galaxy we were in was special. Hearing that, Yi Zichen nodded. That did seem to be the case. During the time he lived in the universe, he could feel the abundant cosmic energy everywhere, but he didn't feel it on Earth. Cosmic energy could strengthen human genes. It was also the existence of this energy that caused humans in many galaxies to be born with extremely high strength. They had extremely high strength. If converted to the Milky Way's classification of strength, many people were born with the strength of immortals or deities. The Milky Way galaxy had also started to receive cosmic energy. To the Milky Way, Yi Zichen felt like it wasn't a bad thing. As Su Yun said, sea and land animals are evolving, and so are humans. The humans of the Milky Way, their overall strength would be greatly improved. How is the overall strength of humans now? And how are the casualties from the evolution of the dire beasts? Earth? Yes. Among the many life planets in the Milky Way galaxy, Earth was the only life planet that didn't have its citizens practicing martial arts. On the other planets, they knew how to cultivate from a young age. Even if those planets obtained cosmic energy and caused the beasts to change, they would be able to react immediately. The casualties aren't too great. Not really. Yun, just tell me the truth. There's no need to beat around the bush between us, said Yi Zichen. I'm not afraid of you thinking too much. Su Yun scratched his head, then spread his hands and told them the truth. Actually, the casualties were still very high. During the early stages of evolution, these people were not on Earth. They were all on the Protoss planet, which was a high-level plane. the very beginning of evolution. It was an old man who collected trash. He punched randomly, but his movements were powerful. When the video was uploaded online, everyone thought it was some special effect. Less than 3 days later, more and more people began to feel their strength increase and their spiritual power increase. This sudden increase in strength gave rise to chaos. Some people began to use their newfound strength to commit crimes and commit atrocities. Their superiors used force to suppress them, but the effects weren't obvious. In the past, firearms had held absolute power. After the entire population evolved, they were practically useless. Many people's spiritual power increased, and so did their reflexes. Sometimes, they couldn't even kill with a gun. The humans on Earth began to fall into chaos. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of disaster. The evolution of human genes increased their abilities in all aspects. It was the same for animals. On the 15th day of the evolution of human genes, the first incident of an evolved animal attacking a human appeared. It started with a pet dog. While fleeing with its owner, it suddenly bared its fangs and bit its owner to death. After all, the dog's owner was also an evolved person. However, he didn't want to get involved in this chaotic conflict. He wanted to find a peaceful place to continue his life. After this incident, more and more animals began to show obvious aggression, and their bodies also changed a lot from the past. In the report of Earth News, someone once saw a mammoth grow to a height of more than 10 meters in less than 10 seconds in front of him. It was also the emergence of such a situation. The once chaotic humans on Earth began to unify. In order to survive, they had to stick together. According to the analysis of experts, some of these evolved animals seemed to have human-like intelligence. This was definitely an analytical conclusion that made people despair. No one was willing to believe the experts, because if the experts' deduction was true, then humans would face an unprecedented survival crisis. But sometimes the truth was just that despairing. On the third day of this analysis, a large number of berserk beasts began to attack humans, occupying the city, attacking the human land. In fact, this was not too bad. One had to know that the sea was actually the most worrying problem for humans, because so far, humans hadn't fully understood everything in the sea. And this time's evolution. It also caused the coastal cities to suffer the most fatal blow. Among them, Neon suffered the most tragic loss. In less than 3 days, it all fell. Half a month passed. There weren't many human countries left on Earth. Among them, the Huaxia dynasty was the most united. It was also one of the more intact countries among the dynasties. Despite the disaster, humans still didn't give up their final resistance. Until, after that, we came. Suiyun couldn't help but let out a long sigh. By the time we received the news, it was already too late. Under those circumstances, Sulu directly unleashed a breath of ice and froze the most dangerous parts of the ocean. All of it? Yi Zichen asked. My lure, big sister, is truly invincible. In a chapter. Chapter 2286. Text of the Red Packet Server Chapter 2281. The totem protects the goddess of ice. She froze the entire ocean. Of all the people Yi Zichen knew, only Su Lu could do something like that. Yi Zichen could imagine a school of sharks and other ferocious sea beasts attacking human cities. Su Lu descended from the heavens and turned all of them into ice sculptures. It was absolutely spectacular. That's it. From Su Yun's expression, it seemed like it was about to end. Did you think? Su Yun smiled wryly. Big Sister Lu scared all the ferocious beasts on Earth. Everyone that could run ran. In any case, I didn't see a single one of them attack a human city before I left. Big Sister Lu is truly amazing. Su Lu single-handedly saved the entire human race from disaster. Oh, right. Su Lu is now the totem guardian deity of Earth. She's called the goddess of ice and snow, said Su Yun. Yi Zichen could sense a hint of jealousy in his expression. Totem? Guardian deity? Yi Zichen was shocked. Yeah, Su Yun shrugged. Su Yun shrugged. If you go back to Earth, you'll know. She's doing very well right now. It's too bad she hasn't condensed godhood. If she did, her telekinesis could send her to transcendence. That works. Yi Zichen couldn't help but smile. Then what are the humans on Earth doing right now? Rebuilding cities, Su Yun replied. The human cities on Earth were heavily damaged, so they're currently being rebuilt. Also, don't be too surprised when you go back. There are only 6 countries on Earth now, and China is the leader. Oh wow, isn't that great? Yi Zichen smiled. I think it's great too. Su Yun also laughed. Su Yun also grinned. The two of them, born and bred in the Huaxia dynasty, smiled ambiguously. But you still didn't say how many people died. Yi Zichen's expression suddenly darkened once more. Not much, Su Yun shrugged. There are roughly 1.2 billion people on Earth right now. China has 600 million of them. That's already very impressive. In other words, there's still 800 million. Yi Zichen didn't continue. Since Su Yun said that there was 600 million, there was no need for him to calculate that. What's more, there were only 1.2 billion people on Earth, and it was already good enough that China could keep 600 million of them. Has the security problem been improved? Of course. With Big Sister Lu here, who would dare to mess around? Su Yun pursed his lips. Right now, Yinshang is your minister of the left. You're Lu spokesperson. You're in charge of discussing the future of Yinshang. Lori, Go Yuzhan, Su Yin, and Kiki established a dojo. Dojo? Yi Zichen frowned. Yes, they actually didn't want to, but let me tell you, if it weren't for this disaster, I really wouldn't have known. They have talented people in other countries. Right now, there are 4 dojos in 6 countries. They say they're cooperating with each other, but they're actually competing with each other, replied Su Yin. I understand. Before the extinction of the human race, humans could put aside the grudges between races and countries and cooperate for the sake of survival. Now that Lu had appeared, the disaster had been resolved. Considering future developments, it was naturally difficult for them to continue working together. However, Yi Zichen was rather confused. Competition? What could they compete for? To provide talents for the world? See, you're thinking of it as simple as you think. Su Yin saw through Yi Zichen's thoughts and grinned. To compete for resources and talents. If you think about it this way, right now, dojos can actually be considered sections. The more people there are, the more resources they can obtain. Right now, the earth seems to be in tatters, but there are treasures everywhere. Whether it's ores, vegetation, or the bones, teeth, fur, or claws of vicious beasts. They're all products of evolution. Let me tell you this. After evolution, cat nails are sharper than steel blades. The same goes for ores. Do you really think the countries won't fight over these resources in the future? Yi Zichen understood. He'd never considered this problem before. When Su Yin put it that way, it was true. These resources had to be fought for. Only by obtaining more resources could the country become more prosperous and prosperous. Who suggested this idea? Asked Yi Zichen. Your wife, said Su Yun. Which one? F*CKU. All of a sudden, Su Yun panicked. He was still a loner. Wasn't Yi Zichen purposefully angering him by asking him which one? What's more, he was Su Yan's big brother. How many women did his little sister's man have? If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't beat Yi Zichen, he would have kicked Yi Zichen a few times. Xiao Yumei. Su Yun frowned. She's right. Yi Zichen smiled. Xiao Yumei had always had a brain in that area, so she was able to see things quite clearly. Of course, at our level and status, we shouldn't have such thoughts. What we need is the evolution and increase of strength for all of humanity. But we were born in China, so a bit of favoritism is inevitable. Anyways, I secretly left some good stuff for our Chinese leaders before I left. Look at Yinshang, he even accused me. Su Yun smiled once again. Yi Zichen nodded as well. That was true. What they wanted to see was the improvement of all of humanity, but they were all humans, not saints. They would definitely have their own selfish desires. What did he accuse you of? Yi Zichen frowned. He didn't feel like Su Yun did anything wrong. No matter what, Yinshang was one of his people. He actually dared to help an outsider. He actually accused me of leaving too little and said that I'm stingy. Su Yun was furious. F***CK. I risked my life to get all of my treasures. He's already given me a lot of face by leaving a bit. No matter how many years have passed, Su Yun's stingy personality has never changed. Oh yeah, I suddenly thought of something. Yi Zichen was stunned. Yi Zichen was stunned, then said solemnly, "Did you make Liu Erjie's nationality label clear? It's our China, right?" "What? I'm afraid that those people... I don't want Liu Erjie to become one of them in the end. Did you forget that the Dragon Boat Festival was theirs, Chu Yuan was theirs, and the paper-making technique was theirs? If Liu Erjie becomes one of them as well, then I'll be really pissed off." "Them." Su Yun waved his hand and smiled nonchalantly. "Their country has already been destroyed. It has already been divided into one of our cities. Don't be afraid. It's all ours from now on." End of the chapter. Chapter 2287. Text of Red Envelope Group Chapter 2282. Crisis Insight. The whole castle was filled with laughter. For this matter, those who knew this joke would naturally understand, but for those who didn't, they should all be from abroad. Until evening, Yi Zichen and Su Yun sat in the courtyard of the castle and chatted about what had happened recently. During this period, Yi Zichen also reminded Su Yun not to mention anything about the Milky Way to anyone. Right now, the interior of the universe was also very chaotic. The Virtual World Corporation's big move seemed to be about to start a war. Although the Milky Way galaxy's bounty had been withdrawn, danger still lurked everywhere. I know, during his time here, Su Yun had learned a few things about the universe. He was a cautious person by nature. In an unknown environment, he knew he had to remain silent. "Yi, where are you?" A low call sounded out from within the castle. Even with his eyes closed, Yi Zichen could tell that Bard was playing. Su Yun looked up, confusion in his eyes. "A friend I met here." As soon as he finished speaking, Bart walked out of the castle with his big belly. "Yi, have you seen Bai-yin? You really should lose some weight." Yi Zichen couldn't help but facepalm when he saw Bard's belly. Yi Zichen guessed that Bai-yin's refusal to accept him was most likely due to Bard's big belly. "Bai-yin, why? This is..." Bard was stunned when he noticed Su Yun. "Perfect, I'll introduce you two to each other. This is Bader, a good friend I met on Blue River Star," said Yi Zichen. "Hello." Su Yun nodded. "This is my good brother from my hometown, Su Yun. He just reached the domain level and came out of train." Yi Zichen smiled. "Good brother." Bard frowned, as if he was jealous. You guys are good brothers. I'm just a friend. All right, I know my place in your heart." With that, Bard walked toward Su Yun. "Let's be brothers. Don't be brothers with him. He doesn't do proper work every day and always makes people worry." "Huh. Ha ha." Su Yun paused for a moment, then burst into laughter. This brother's really interesting. He's always been like that." Yi Zichen shrugged. For a good half an hour after a while, Bai-yin, whom Bard had been longing for, finally came back. As soon as they returned to the castle, Bard shamelessly approached them. Late at night, Bai-yin and her sisters from Planet Shell prepared a sumptuous meal for Su Yun and company to welcome them. At the banquet, Su Yun turned into his brother-in-law and repeatedly asked Yi Zichen about his relationship with the women in the castle. "Haha, are you his brother-in-law?" Bada's face was red. He was still holding a glass of Blue River Star's special wine. "Yi, I didn't expect you to already have a wife." "TSK. He's a womanizer." Su Yun looked drunk as well. "Let me tell you, he has many female friends. My sister and him are really... It's hard to explain." "Ha ha. Unexpected." Bard and Su Yun blushed as they chatted. Yi Zichen maintained his smile. He didn't join them, nor did he leave, nor did he tell them to stop. He didn't want to spoil everyone's mood. He was also afraid that Su Yun would say something he shouldn't, so he could only sit there and watch. If Su Yun really did say it, he would stop him in time and end the banquet. "Easy, I have something to say." The machine race's optical computer suddenly spoke. Hearing that, Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" Then, Bailey said a few words in his mind. Hearing that, Yi Zichen frowned. "I understand. Let's talk about this later. Pay close attention during this period of time and see what their intentions are." Leave it to me, Bailey nodded. Don't get noticed by them. TSK. Just the... With a snicker, Bailey disappeared from Yi Zichen's shoulder. Sui-Yun and Bar drank for more than 2 hours. In the end, they were so drunk that they couldn't even speak clearly. Only when the two of them collapsed onto the table did Yi Zichen carry them back to their rooms. Bain, I'll have to trouble you here, Yi Zichen said as he looked at the mess in the room. That's what I should do. When Yi Zichen returned to his room and locked the door from the inside, he called Bailey out again. How's the situation? Nothing much has changed. They have been investigating your information, so I gave them fake information. Bailey smiled proudly. Hearing that, Yi Zichen frowned. Just now, Bailey contacted him and told him that he was investigating Yi Zichen's personal information. Someone was investigating Yi Zichen's personal information. Suddenly, someone was investigating him. The first thing that Yi Zichen thought of was whether his identity would be suspected. No matter what, he wasn't someone from the Banao galaxy. His identity was actually a fake identity, even though he logged in as a universe citizen in the Banao galaxy. However, his previous residence and resume were all blank. Also, Bei used capture earlier. Those people were also preparing to strip her memories. Yi Zichen couldn't help but suspect that someone was suspecting him. Can you find out who is investigating me? Wait, let me try. The machine race had very high talent and abilities in this area. Bailey popped up not long after he immersed himself in the virtual network. I found it. The source is within Blue River Planet. Blue River Planet? Yi Zichen frowned. Yes, the login and logout points are both Blue River Planet. Bailey nodded. Logout? They already stopped investigating? Yeah, these people seem to be investigating where you live. I gave them a few fake information, then they all logged out of the virtual network after they received it. They didn't investigate anything related to you anymore. Logged out of the virtual network. There were only 2 possibilities. One was that they couldn't find anything, so they could only give up. The other was that they already obtained the information they wanted, so nothing else was important to them. From Yi Zichen's perspective, the reason they logged out of the virtual network was clearly the second, because Bailey mentioned that he gave them some information, then they logged out in satisfaction. Investigating where I live. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. All of a sudden, he couldn't think of what those people's goal was. Can you find out anything about them? Easy. Bailey smiled confidently, then reappeared from the virtual network in less than 10 minutes. Found it. Haka sent people to investigate you. Haka? Yi Zichen frowned. Yi Zichen had no impression of this name. It's this person. Before Bailey finished. Then, a photo of a human appeared in front of Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows and nodded. So it's him. End of the chapter. Chapter 2288. Text of the Red Packet Server Chapter 2283. Dealing with hacker Yi Zichen was afraid of this sort of person. After beating him up, there would be even more trouble in the future. How long has it been? Has he already started to send people to investigate where I live? Did he come to my castle to cause trouble? Yi Zichen looked outside. The castle was heavily guarded. There were more than 30 stellar rank guards and more than 10 stellar rank guards. Yi Zichen had asked Bei Yin to help him buy all of them. Hacker was a 7th level star level. Coming to my place is just seeking death. Or rather, he hired an assassin. Are you sure it's him? Yi Zichen asked subconsciously. It wasn't that he didn't trust Bei Li's investigative abilities. It was just that he wanted to confirm it. I'm sure. Bailey nodded solemnly. I hacked into the Virtual World Corporation and the city's surveillance system. The people who investigated you are from the housing exchange. They contacted a few people earlier. They are Hacker's subordinates. Then I investigated Hacker. Bailey spoke for 5 whole minutes before he finished telling Yi Zichen all of his achievements. During that time, Yi Zichen did not interrupt him. Actually, he just wanted to confirm it. There was no need for Bailey to explain so much. However, since Bailey wanted to show off his strength, Yi Zichen allowed him to continue. With that, Bailey puffed out his chest like a little kid asking for praise in order to get Yi Zichen's praise. Well done. As expected of the prince of the machine race. You were able to hack into the Virtual World Corporation and the city surveillance system. Amazing. Yi Zichen gave him a thumbs up. Bailey's proud nose grew several centimeters. Then look, I, Bailey, am a genius of the machine race. Ah, Yi Zichen laughed. Yi Zichen laughed. Then I'll have to trouble you, genius prince of the machine race, to help me investigate Hacker's current location. You found out where he is? Bailey frowned. Yes. What are you looking for him for? You can't be thinking of. Am I supposed to wait for him to cause trouble for me? Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. Find out where he is. This guy is a disaster if he's alive. No problem. Bailey's eyes instantly brightened. I love doing this sort of thing. A long street covered with pink neon lights. The streets were filled with infatuated men with lewd smiles on their faces. There were even a few scantily clad women following them. There was a rotten smell everywhere. This was the red light district of Blue River Star. Compared to Earth, this kind of red light district existed legally on Blue River Star. On the roof of the street, a few people wearing black clothes and face masks hurriedly disappeared from the roof. No one noticed their presence. It wasn't until they came to a shop with a cat logo on the signboard that they stopped. Don't waste time. Master's goal is clear, right? Understood. Under the night sky, the men in black clothes nodded in agreement. Go down. Shio, shio, shio. The few men in black jumped down from the roof. They did not use the back door or the broken window, but directly entered from the front door. In less than half a minute, a large number of customers ran out of the shop, and not long after, a few men in black clothes came out of the shop. They held Hacker's anonymous crystal card in their hands. Then he took out a signal flare from his pocket. He sent out a signal in front of everyone. Let's go. The entire process took less than 5 minutes. When they left, and the customers returned to the shop, they saw blood flowing out of a room on the second floor. Hacker was lying in a pool of blood. A Wercat beauty squatted in the corner of the room and looked at the scene in front of her in fear. It's over. Yi Zichen, who sat in the courtyard of the castle, revealed a smile. The men in black clothes were his slaves, and the signal flare they released was specially modified to be able to be seen clearly even from several districts away. The signal was green. This meant that they had succeeded. Hacker was already dead. You humans are all so cautious. Or is it just you? Bailey sat on Yi Zichen's shoulder with a hint of fear. I'm starting to wonder if the person just now was really you. What is it? Yi Zichen tilted his head. Find out Hacker's location. Send the slaves over. Don't waste time and directly kill him. After successfully releasing the signal, leave Blue River Star and not return to the castle. Isn't that normal? Yi Zichen smiled wryly. Star-level experts already had the status of cosmic citizens. What's more, in a small place like Blue River Star, the status of a star-level expert wasn't low. The local management office would definitely investigate his death. If they returned to the castle, they would definitely be tracked down. If they reported the situation through the virtual network, they might also be tracked down. Using the signal flare, Yi Zichen could clearly see that they had already killed the target. That was the best way to deal with it. He believed that there was definitely a better way, but time was of the essence. Yi Zichen didn't want to waste too much time in case something happened. The slaves sent to assassinate Hacker. Yi Zichen had carefully selected a few experts with good mental fortitude who were at the cosmic system level. These people were placed in a hidden place after they were bought. Outsiders didn't know that they were Yi Zichen's people, and they weren't contacted by Yi Zichen's people. It could be said that even if the local management office found out about the three of them, they definitely wouldn't be able to link it to Yi Zichen. You humans are truly terrifying. Bailey shook his head, as if he was shocked at how Yi Zichen handled the situation. Humans are terrifying? Isn't the machine race the best at calculations? Yi Zichen shrugged. We are, but we don't have as many bad intentions as you humans. Bailey shouted as he stood on Yi Zichen's shoulder. I get angry just thinking about it. The reason I was captured by the Master of the Galaxy was because he tricked me with his words. Now that I think about it, I'm so pissed. Ha ha. Yi Zichen laughed, but didn't say anything else. Yi Zichen let out a sigh of relief when Hacker was dealt with. However, he felt that the problem wasn't that simple. He was just a 7th-level star system human. He also knew very well that Yi Zichen had several star system level guards with him. If he wanted to hire assassins to kill Yi Zichen without anyone noticing, he would need to be at least a universe level to be able to escape unscathed. Hiring a universe level assassin, Yi Zichen didn't think that Hacker would be able to afford it. As for who exactly was using Hacker to investigate him, Yi Zichen didn't know. Anyway, the problem in front of him had been dealt with. What kind of problems would there be in the future? I'll deal with it when it comes. Bailey, what? Bailey was still rather annoyed, so his tone was very unfriendly. Help me buy some goods online that can increase my strength. Goods? Bailey frowned. Weapons? Or, for consumption, that's pretty expensive. You've pretty much used up all your money. How about you go in and get some? Bailey asked. The go in, he was naturally referring to the second universe. I'll go in when I really don't have any left. You have to go in eventually, Bailey shrugged. He understood very well that the second universe was the only way to support Yi Zichen's consumption. Anyways, I'm reminding you, if you don't go in now, you're going to finish all your elemental fairy crystals. You won't be able to replenish them. We'll see. Yi Zichen sighed, then spoke up. Help me take a look at the consumables that apprentices can use. I need a lot of them. Apprentice? Bailey was shocked. Yes, apprentice. Yi Zichen nodded. He naturally didn't buy them for himself. He didn't need them to increase his strength at all. All he had to do was wait for the elements to repay him. Those expensive consumables were too extravagant for him. However, it wouldn't be a problem for an apprentice to use cheap. The reason he bought them was to send them back to Earth. Since humans had already evolved on Earth, then he would speed up the evolution of humans on Earth. End of this chapter. Chapter 2289. Text of Red Envelope Group Chapter 2284. The Duel about half an hour. Yi Zichen picked out a few from the many consumables that Bailey provided. Most of them were drinks. Speaking of which, it was quite interesting. These drinks were the most common energy drinks in the universe. Yi Zichen didn't expect them to become the stores that Yi Zichen chose to buy to help the humans of Earth increase their strength. The effect of this energy drink was, if an ordinary person consumed 10 milliliters of it, they would be able to reach the apprentice level. The apprentice level was more or less the same as the body refining level of cultivators. It could significantly improve one's physical fitness. There was also a drink that could be consumed by martial warriors. After consuming it, one could become a high-level martial warrior. In other words, from foundation establishment to the peak of foundation establishment. In order to ensure that Earth had enough drinks, Yi Zichen told Bailey to buy 50 million tons online. This was enough for the humans on Earth to consume for 100 years. It might have been the store's first time meeting a big customer like Yi Zichen, so they directly gave him a 5% discount and even gave him a spatial container. Ding! Respected Universe Gold Card user, you have spent 110,000 Universe dollars on the virtual network. I didn't expect it to be so expensive for apprentices and warriors. Yi Zichen couldn't help but smile wryly as he looked at the information on the virtual network. 110,000 Universe dollars. A few normal universe levels, their entire wealth might not even be that much. You don't have to spend these. Bailey said, I found a few less effective ones for you. It's not that you don't want them, but you insist on these high-grade ones. Even star ranks wouldn't be willing to drink this kind of energy drink. You're actually giving it to apprentices and warriors? How extravagant. Didn't you say that the medicine has side effects? Said Yi Zichen. Haven't you heard that medicine is 30% poisonous? Bailey frowned. Since it's a medicinal solution, there will definitely be side effects. However, the price will be several times cheaper. Forget it. Since he already bought it, Yi Zichen couldn't be bothered to fuss over it. What's more, he didn't lack money at the moment. What he cared about the most was to be able to better improve the strength of humans on Earth. However, no wonder the universe level had no way to protect the planet. Putting aside his strength, he did not have enough money to elevate the human race on this planet. To remind you, the universe dollars in your account have already been overdrawn. The universe gold card can be overdrawn for 120 days, and your quota can still support your elemental sprite for about 6 days. And this is because the fire elemental sprite is in hibernation, saving us quite a bit of money. If it wakes up, Also, it's almost time to repay the overdrawn funds. In any case, you should do as you see fit. I understand. Yi Zichen couldn't help but pinch his head. Regardless of whether he wanted to enter the second universe or not, the current situation was already forcing him to enter. Are we really going? When Yi Zichen recalled what had happened that night and how he'd managed to escape death, he couldn't help but get a headache. Overdraft. Oh no, he should have listened to Bailey's instigation. If he didn't overdraft himself, he wouldn't have to go. At most, the elemental spirits wouldn't eat crystals. Now the money in the bank. He had to go. There was also the fire elemental sprite. Ever since he had absorbed the origin energy of the mature elemental sprite, it had been in a deep slumber for a very long time. Until now, there were no signs of it waking up. If it weren't for the fact that the other elemental spirits had confirmed that there was nothing wrong with him, Yi Zichen was rather worried that something had happened to him. I hope it will give me a surprise when it wakes up. Yi Zichen firmly believed that the fire elemental sprite had definitely benefited greatly from its slumber. After awakening, his strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. 3 days after that, Vada took them on a tour of the Blue River planet with him. He had been to almost every place he could go. A place that he couldn't go to, Bard went by himself. Yi Zichen and Su Yiyun didn't go. Don't overthink it. It was the casino of the Blue River Star. Yi Zichen and Su Yiyun had limited resources, and they didn't have any interest in that area, so they didn't go. During this period, Hacker's death had already been investigated by the agency. Yi Zichen had been paying close attention to the progress of the matter, but up until now, he hadn't found anything that pointed to him. This put Yi Zichen at ease. He was really afraid that the investigative ability of the Bureau here was amazing, and that they could find out that he was the real culprit behind the scenes from some clues. From the looks of it, that was all. Forget about finding Yi Zichen. He couldn't even find his slaves. These 3 days were considered a dangerous period. If they couldn't find it within these 3 days, then it would be very difficult to find it in the future. It's you, right? Su Yiyun immediately looked towards Yi Zichen when he saw the report. Who else could it be if not me? Yi Zichen shrugged. There was nothing for him to hide from Su Yiyun. He wasn't afraid that Su Yiyun would tell on him. It's good that I'm dead. It saves me trouble. Su Yiyun didn't even bother asking for a reason. That's right. Yi Zichen nodded. The reason they were able to become good friends was because they were once roommates. Another thing they had in common was that they didn't like trouble. Hacker stayed. Regardless of whether he came to find Yi Zichen's location or not, he would definitely have other troubles while he was alive. Getting rid of him now would be the end of it all. Did you deal with it properly? You didn't leave anything behind, right? There should be no problem. Look, we still haven't found any ferocious beasts. According to how we do things on Earth, 3 days later should be the safe period. You can't think of it like that. Earth and the universe are different. Su Yiyun didn't agree with Yi Zichen's thoughts. People in the universe have long enough lifespans, so they can handle cases endlessly. In short, you can't be careless. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. That was the end of the matter regarding Hacker. Su Yiyun didn't pursue the topic, but Yi Zichen saw him purse his lips as if he wanted to say something. What happened? Yi, can you lend me some money? Su Yiyun rubbed his hands together. I want to see a higher-level duel, to Su Yiyun's words. Yi Zichen understood what he meant. Before he saw Yi Zichen, he'd stayed in the arena and watched their duel. According to Su Yiyun, from those people's duels, he could learn something. Previously, he had only watched low-level arenas. Even so, he had spent most of his money, and he had borrowed it from Yi Zichen's slaves. Haha, there's no need for us to talk about borrowing. Yi Zichen patted his shoulder with a smile. Do you have a crystal card from the universe? Yes. Su Yiyun nodded. There were bets in the arena, and he would occasionally participate in them. The money he won would be transferred to the card, so he wouldn't be able to get the bets if he didn't have a crystal card. Give me the account number. Not long later, Su Yiyun told Yi Zichen the account number. Yi Zichen immediately told Bailey to transfer the money over. Not even half a minute later, Su Yiyun, who had already received the message, glared at Yi Zichen. Easy. It's enough for you to use for a while. Yi Zichen smiled. F***CK. It's more than enough for me to use for a while. Su Yun couldn't help but shout. Yi Zichen had just transferred 200,000 universe dollars to him. Watching a low-level arena was only 3,000 Blue River dollars. Yi Zi, it seems like you suffered quite a bit in the universe. Su Yun's expression suddenly darkened when he saw the transfer, then smiled wryly at Yi Zichen. Perhaps other people would say that Yi Zichen got rich in the universe when they saw the money. However, Su Yun was very clear. It definitely wasn't easy for Yi Zichen to have so much money. It's all right. Yi Zichen smiled. Yi Zichen smiled, but didn't say anything else. You should be able to look at higher-level ones with this money, right? Of course. Su Yun nodded. I have the right to fight as well. You want to enter the octagonal cage? Yi Zichen frowned. That's what I was thinking. Why do you have to go to the octagonal cage? There are virtual battles in the Virtual World Corporation's virtual network. The money I gave you is enough for you to fight several tens of millions of times in the virtual network. What's more, he can choose his opponent according to your requirements, Yi Zichen said. I know, but it's different. Su Yun shook his head. No matter how good the opponents given by the virtual network are, in the end, they're all virtual, so there won't be the kind of life and death experience. Haven't you noticed that the only time we can truly increase our strength is when we are struggling on the edge of life and death? End of this chapter.